Stylish on the outside, savage on the inside. Legion by Lenovo.
Welcome, everybody, to North American Playday number 4 and our final match of our first 2 Super Weeks and our final match before we break for DreamHack Valencia. I'm Intero, and I'm joined, as always, by Kickstar. We've got 3 exciting matches for you today.
Hello, and yes, you did hear Parker right. It is just going to be 3. So we do have a bit of a scheduling conflict as a result. We don't have one team for one of our matches, and so that's just going to move on.
So we'll just be doing 3 for you today. And in case you're curious, what's our scheduling going to be like? Well, we have a schedule for you to take a look at. We're going to be starting things off with Space Station versus SK Gaming, Evil Geniuses versus Mouse Sports, and Noble versus the first and only North American team, as of right now at least, to qualify from this region for the Paris Major. Obey Alliance, they'll be joining Evil Geniuses and Rogue from North America in Paris next month.
Yeah, and very impressive that Obey managed to get that Paris major spot. You know, they're a team that so far in this season hasn't been doing so great. Speaking of which, let's take a look at those standings and see exactly where they are. At the bottom, at 8th spot right this minute with a single point. And yeah, so they haven't been doing well this season so far. However, I think they've shown by qualifying for the Paris Majors that they definitely are going to be ramping it up moving forward. They do, of course, have some minor shifts that they made before the season started, and they're getting used to still. So I expect good things from Obey moving forward.
They had to play a marathon set of matches as well during the Paris Major qualifiers. I think they played something like on the final day. They had a potential 11 maps that they had to play or something along those lines, and I think they played 9 of them, maybe 9 or 10. It was a really impressive showing from them. They seemed to get better the longer their run went. But let's talk about our first matchup first. In the roster for our first combatant is going to be Space Station Gaming. No real surprises there whatsoever. The team that currently enters today, North America, in 2nd place.
Yeah, they've been doing great. And that's Chala Rampy, Redeemer, Shuttle, and Thinking Nade. So here we have them up on the board, and yeah, their opponents, of course, will be SK Gaming. But before we get to them, yeah, doing really well in this season. And here we go. Actually, their opponents, yeah, Nyx, Houghton, Jarvis, Mint, and Pojo.
So my apologies, actually. Space Station are sitting in first right now. I had Noble in there as first. That was me. I guess, getting my signals crossed here. So Space Station first overall. Now, SK had been searching for their very first victory. They got it last week against Evil Geniuses in a very impressive performance on Border. Good set of bans from them, great execution from SK Gaming. Nyx has joined the roster in place of Evil Waffle as of 2 matches ago, and honestly, they've been looking better and better and better as time has been going on. As for Space Station Gaming, no real surprises. I think last week was a bit of a surprise. They drew Mouse Sports. I don't think a lot of people expected that to necessarily happen, but Mouse Sports finished 2nd in the Paris Major qualifiers, and they've also looked really good since adding Hyper to their lineup a couple weeks back.
I can say without question that the North American region right now looks to be one of the most fiercely competitive regions out there. I mean, if you take a look, actually, I believe it's the only one where there's not a single team that's gotten all of the wins so far, and in these play days that we've had. So yeah, North America, in terms of the teams that are competing here, all very, very close.
Yeah, I mean, all of our regions have been such nail-biters. It's been very intriguing to see the way that they make these changes that they need to operator bans, to the site rotation, etc. I feel like at least for the next couple of weeks, our focus is going to be on how teams are adapting to learning all the changes to the play style, and as teams slowly start to master it, I think then we're going to see some real impactful things happening. A good example is the 6th pick. I think teams are really starting to realize how to use that 6th pick to their advantage. But let's take a look at our bans for you. So we've got 5 maps that are going to be in the pool, 2 that have been removed, and when those 2 get grayed out, it's Border and Oregon. It's going to give us an interesting showing. Now, Coastline seems to be like the 3rd most popular map after both Border and Oregon. I think because of the way that the rotation works, it's got 4 sites that are pretty easy to hold and to attack.
Yeah, Coastline coming into the meta hard in this season, you're absolutely right. And I think it does have a lot to do with just that, the versatility of the map. But it's already gone from Space Station. So we're looking at either Consulate or Villa. Of course, I'm rooting for Villa, but SK's not going to let that happen.
No
Consulate, the map to pop up. And you're right, no chance. SK definitely not going to want to go to the offsite. If they haven't practiced it, not wanting to go to a map that they're not used to is typical of them.
Villa is still a map where, on top of everything that teams are learning, it's very difficult for them to adapt. The only time we've seen it in North American Pro League, to the best of my knowledge, was the Cloud9 Noble matchup, which showed that both teams were still a little rusty on it. They both didn't look like they were fully prepared. When I say rusty, I guess that's technically incorrect because they haven't played it enough times to be rusty. They just weren't as well polished as they are on other maps. Consulate is one that's been in the pool for ages. This should be a pretty clean affair on this matchup.
No, we see that a lot about a lot of the maps in the pool as well. I mean, pretty much everything except for Coastline and Villa these days has been really well refined, and I guess technically Clubhouse as well after its changes. These are all maps that have been really well refined. Even the new Clubhouse slightly, given it's kind of got shades of the older Clubhouse. So most of these teams are going to be used to what these maps are and how they play out. And on Consulate, I mean, that's about as far back as you go in terms of stability and competitive scene for Siege.
Right. Not only great diversity in terms of how you attack and defend the 3 sites, but the operators that are required of it. Now, Consulate only has 3 sites on it, so we're going to see all of them played very likely today. Lobby is typically the one site that sees the least frequent amount of play. But, I mean, it really depends on how the bans go. If there's a Thermite ban, then Garage becomes very interesting. That's usually the #1 place you're going to defend because Hibana certainly doesn't have as much of an impact on that site as a Thermite does, trying to take hold of that Garage wall. Whereas if, you see a Mira band, not as consequential as she is on some other maps being removed from the matchup.
Still useful, though. I mean, you can put your Mira in some good places, no matter what site it is. But you're absolutely right. It's not the most useful operator, and that's why you'll often see actually a Mira go unbanned on Consulate, which is always interesting because a lot of the time she does get banned on every other match. But let's take a look at the community vote, see who you thought were going to be the victors of this match, and. Wow, is that real? Is that actually?
We've been played a number of times by the poll masters over the last little while, but darn, that is pretty close. I think a bit of the fact that fans of SK Gaming, there's a number of them.
Yeah.
#1, Space Station Gaming have been so dominant this season, but I think that overall that they might still be a little bit less proven than SK, even though they've had more success this season. SK's performance last week. Space Station's performance last week, it's a mix of all of it, I'd say.
And that's the thing, is it is week by week, and you've got a situation where a team that's so old and so well known in the community, that's SK, and I mean in terms of their experience, versus SSG, which is technically a little bit more newer up and coming. However, they have also got a good amount of time under their belts. Establish this even split because SSG has got such a lead in the season right now.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a huge, and in Europe in particular, we were looking at this last week.
Yeah.
Europe, the team that is currently sitting in 5th place needs to win 2 matches in a row and then the team in 4th to not lose a single matchup or not even get a single point in order to crack the top 4. I mean, yeah, sure. We've said this many times. You've still got 11 or 10 weeks left at the conclusion of this broadcast. But that gap could possibly be insurmountable. Those odds could be insurmountable.
Yeah.
In a couple weeks' time, you find yourself in a position where you just can't make up that ground because your opponents are not losing the way that you're winning. And that's it.
I figure once we hit the mid-season and we go for that break,
Yes.
then we're going to have a situation where a lot of the teams at the bottom of the spectrum probably can't recover statistically from where they are, and they're going to switch from fighting for a potential spot at the season finals to fighting for a potential spot in the top 4 to retain their position.
Or even just not for that 8th spot, because if people will recall the way that the system used to work, the 2 bottom teams in every single region used to compete against the 2 top teams down in the Challenger League system, which is right below Pro League. Doesn't exist anymore. If you finish dead last in North America, Latin America, or Europe, you're automatically relegated. You don't have an opportunity to play an extra match. You've got 14 matches to prove that you're not the worst team in your region, or else you go down to Challenger League.
And it's going to be really interesting to see how, when the motivators shift from being, potential success to being complete failure, how teams are going to respond to that, what they're going to bring out Are they going to develop newer, different strategies in an attempt to avoid that 8th spot? What's going to change?
I think there's going to be a lot more of a focus on less broad performance and more directly countering the team that you have now. And the way I say that is that a lot of teams will always have strategies designed to try to counter strat the opponents you have, while also working on broader strats that can work against almost anybody in a general sense. When you got 3 weeks left and you're possibly on that razor's edge of being sent down to Challenger League, broader strats aren't really going to matter as much as we need to be prepared for every single matchup we have. Counter bans become so much more important. Winning the map ban phase becomes so much more important. And being able to counter their strategies every week rather than just have a better game for yourself becomes paramount.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of the same stuff coming out in the earlier parts of the season, but I think you're right. I think it's going to be more prevalent as time goes on. You know, SK even last time they played, I always like to reference it. It was so fun to watch. Was the Thermite on border, because the way that they directly countered their opponents and allowed for them to themselves to really emphasize their playstyle on border by getting rid of that huge hard destruction from the Thermite charge, really opened up a lot of doors, and is one of the reasons I think they did so well in that match.
And not to mention that I think it was also the fact that Evil Geniuses in particular at that time are still undergoing role swaps. They're still undergoing a new comm structure with BC, Brandon Carr, now taking over as IGL. So Troy Canadian, who formerly was their IGL, is now in more of a fragging position. He can kind of go do his own thing and not worry about having to, you know, lead the rest of the team. And they've had role swaps from everybody down to what NVK is doing all the way to what, you know, Necrox is doing. It's been intriguing. And if we're focusing on this matchup in particular, SK by adding Nyx, he had a bit of a rough first game. He was playing Echo. He also had a number of opening deaths. Yeah. Really shaky start. But since then, I think he's been playing a lot smarter and a lot safer, and it's helping his team, you know, with huge dividends.
Sometimes you just need that solid play from an individual where you don't need him to go out of his way to get frags. You don't need him to go and peek everything, you know, to try and get an advantage early. You just need somebody to sit on their role, do their job, and do it with confidence, and you know, just be something you can lean on, because it supports the rest of the team when you're fulfilling your role and no one has to step in to help you.
Right. So, an interesting matchup between these two teams. SK, Troy actually noted, or Canadian actually noted in our broadcast during the qualifiers, when SK fell to Obey in the semifinals, then Obey went up to play Mouse. He noted that SK typically likes to play a cheesy style of play. You know, we see them run Blitz, we see them run Glass, we see them run Blackbeard, etc. It's something that we talked about, you know, broader strategies versus the way you play against your opponent. It's a broader strategy, but against most opponents, they're not used to playing that style of play. It's a very Brazilian style of play when we see the Brazilian teams will go all or nothing.
Right.
I mean, it makes sense. We've seen SK emulate a lot of Brazilian strategies before, bring them over to North America, especially on which sites they play. It'll be very interesting to see the way they play that against SSG, because the one story for me for SSG this season has been the depth of their team. They've got 5 players now, all of whom are able to take over a round and carry them the way they need to.
Well, all that said, let's throw into the game. Let's get this match started. You know, as we load into Consulate, again, SSG on defense, SK on attack, and we'll load right in. So, this map, we've talked about it a lot. Always worth mentioning. You can defend anywhere. But a lot of things have changed in recent times, most notably the operator ban phase being introduced, and that could impede your ability to go to any site you wish. First ban right off the bat is Ying, and that's something we have actually been seeing a lot of recently. Ying, one of the more banned operators, I think, overall for the Pro League. Thermite is the second, and that's going to be from SK Gaming. They're very fond of getting rid of that hard destruction, even though they're starting on attack. Definitely a risky play, but could pay off for them in the long run. Now, that means that the basement, as you remarked on earlier, Parker, is going to be so much more defensible.
Yeah, Thermite is almost always a must ban on this site. At least I've noted so far, and every time that we've seen a Consulate, I mean, it really depends on who's playing. You know, all the 2 times that I have right now, we've seen a Thermite ban. So, given that, it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't really surprise me. What does surprise me is the Echo ban, and for 2 reasons. Number 1, Echo is seen in almost every single strategy when remaining unbanned by SK Gaming. Nyx will play the Echo. The real question is, what is Nyx going to play now that there is no Echo? Of course, that is a direct counter ban, I would say, to Redeemer in Space Station Gaming, but Redeemer has shown a resilience in playing Maestro and in times even playing roaming roles in previous seasons, most notably last season. So SK Gaming realizes that they're going to maybe not be handicapping themselves, but they feel that there's value to ban an operator that they are comfortable playing on, that they see in a lot of their strategies, to handicap their opponents. So Redeemer, of course, will play Maestro, which makes an awful lot of sense, and Valkyrie and Thermite are just pretty common staple operators on this map as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, Maestro is very similar to Echo, the main difference being, of course, a little bit less mobile and a little bit more lethal.
Right.
So it's a bit of a trade-off. It's kind of whatever floats your boat, but when you got an Echo band staring you in the face, I guess you kind of have the decision made for you. Now, this is kind of interesting. I like that we're defending the middle floor first. In fact, it's actually a really good call to try and keep things mixed up. You could see that the attacker lineup from SK is a little bit different than what you would normally see on a main lobby take. So I like that from SSG. However, they chose not to bring a Mira, regardless of her not being banned. So potential loss, we always say, and we talked about before the match even started, Mira's not essential here, but she can be very useful. And one of the most useful places to have a Mira window is inside of that bathroom.
Right. And she's viable. She's viable on every single site. The garage is where she really comes in, I think, to a large amount of importance. And you know, when you see a lot of teams that will attack console with either a Thermite or a Hibana, or both of them even, you have that extra utility from Hibana to take care of those mirror windows downstairs. Obviously, given that there's only a Hibana, there's no mirror. It's going to be very interesting to see that the way they play this. So SK, though, lined up right now by that park bench, just outside of the hallway looking in towards Piano, and there's 4 of them there. I don't know if this is going to be a lion and a very quick push, but we could find ourselves in a position where they all rush together and very quickly take A to completely overwhelm. And there you go.
There, wow, what a Capital bolt, and the rush downstairs, interestingly, but the plant as well all the while. This execution from SK is so well coordinated, inching just barely in to get that plant. There are players repelling on metal windows, but the run out actually gets the Claymore of Pojo to get a TK and some damage onto the Doc, who overhealed himself before running out. A genius play. Redeemer gets Nyx, and Hot and Cold back onto Redeemer. So it's a fight back here from Space Station. They've gotten a lot of control thanks to that Claymore. And you can see SK trying to hold on to the diffuser and deny the disable. Jarvis is still on metal windows, so all the while, no, he doesn't check it! He allows for one of the defenders to sit on the diffuser and disable it. Chala with the brain plays, and what a mistake from the Capitao to not keep hold of his ward.
I'm pretty certain what was happening was you saw that there were 3 bodies there. One was engaging Mint through the main door while 2 of them stacked up on those double doors. It looked like Jarvis was under fire and had to duck down to try and keep himself alive, but I mean, you've got a 7-second window there. So what ultimately ended up being a great play from SK Gaming got countered by Space Station, and Pojo jumping out of that window. I think he might have, I'm not exactly certain exactly how the Claymore mechanics work 100%, but he might have actually absorbed more of that Claymore blast to keep the Doc alive and saved the Doc no matter what.
I'm also guessing that the Doc overhealed, which potentially could have changed the explosion as well. But I think you're right. I think Pojo did absorb a lot of the damage, and thus was the one to eventually die. All that aside, though, the Claymore be darned. I mean, the post plant was still being played really well from SK, regardless of that unfortunate circumstance. And it was down to the fact that there was no one hard holding the diffuser. The job fell to Jarvis, I believe it was, who was playing Capitao.
Or possibly the Hibana, because I believe the Hibana was working through a rotate all the way down through Visa to try and go through the double doors of Visa to try and look at the diffuser, just a bit too slow. So both of them,
yeah,
I think you can reasonably look at if they had been a little bit faster.
You could point a finger at all of them, really. I mean, when it comes down to it, they had 3 men alive, and they had the diffuser planted, but they were not watching it. And Chala, you know, the disable, it takes a long time in this setup. So 7 whole seconds as compared to the ranks, which was like 5 or something like that, which is it's pretty extreme. So the fact that Chala was allowed to sit on that for 7-6 is just honestly really impressive to me. Now, SK, after losing that, are going to have to attack onto a different site. It's going to be Space Station defending the top floor. Now, I do want to say, though, beside the post-plant faltering from SK, their execution was beautiful.
Oh, they managed to get a plant down in 55 seconds, which is
Yeah.
remarkably fast. They were able to smoke off anybody from pushing into the lobby, then they smoked off the lobby itself. They were in a position to they tossed a frag grenade in just to try and cut off a rotate, but you gotta think, if that dog goes out and takes the blast, Pojo doesn't go down, you've downed the dog, you've still got Pojo still alive. That's a pretty crazy mishap to have happen in real freak circumstances.
Absolutely.
Bomb located by attack.
Now, you can see the Jaeger, that shuttle playing on the top of yellow stairs. An important position. If the attackers get control over yellow stairs, they establish a really easy crossfire with the B windows. Ooh, Nyx missing the nade. He's going to clear some barbed wire very likely on those yellow stairs, but he's not going to do the damage that he wants to any potential players in the site. Now, I'm not sure if it was called out, but there is no actual player in the site. There are drones in that site, so it's confusing that the nade came regardless.
He did get the drop hatch, it looks like, though.
You think that was his intention?
I couldn't imagine so. I mean, there's a lot better ways to take care of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a Zofia, you could go beneath the site, possibly.
Still.
I think they might have just expected somebody to play in closet, but Shuttle, unbeknownst to them, is just hanging out on yellow stairs right now with what appears to be an ADS. So if he were to get pressured from grenades, which there are no more left, he would have hopefully at least stayed alive if you're Shuttle.
So he will be droned out as he attempts to move downstairs, which is likely to prompt him to just stay on his position upstairs. As long as he holds on the top of white, like I said, that's a lot of control that he gives his team. Meanwhile, SK is kind of spread out right now. You can see that Zofia is going to be trying to disrupt any players inside of Connector, and he will do just that. Chala, with a little bit of HP left, is actually going to eat a firebolt to the face, all the while the defuse plant coming down. The Capital play from SK has been amazing as Nyx gets rampy, continues to hold on. Shuttle, though, at the top of yellow will refrag, and Mint will get Redeemer. So heavy favor on SK's side, but we've seen this before. Nyx is going to extend the lead, though, thinking eliminated Shuttle. Now the last defender with pistol out, not going to reload his primary. Doesn't see a point. Jarvis will shut him down. The executions from SK have been so fast.
Now, if we go back, SK does have a very recent sample of how they play on this map, and it was against Obey. So when they were playing against Obey in the qualifiers just a couple days ago, they actually did a pretty good job on the ban phase. If I recall correctly, they were able to ban out some pretty important utility. They took a smoke off the board as well. And at the time, our analysis led them to believe, well, they're going to run a Lion, they're going to run, they're going to run a Finka, they're going to completely go for pushes through Garage. And, you had Jarvis playing on Sledge. They went with more of a standard composition. I don't think it really worked for them. And we've already seen a change here. Number one, they've been running a Capitao through 3 rounds. And they've used the Capitao very well in order to isolate the site, isolate the players who are off-site from Space Station Gaming, and cut off the rotates, while also having Nyx and Mint hold the rotations quite well. And Nyx in particular, he's getting progressively better as we see over the last couple weeks, and feeling a lot more comfortable with the way that this team works, especially now that he's able to learn their strategies and be impactful in how they're played out. Space Station Gaming able to win once again what ended up being a pretty quick smoke plant strategy. So 2 rounds in a row, and they've done basically the same thing. Space Station doesn't appear to be well equipped to deal with such a swift execute.
The thing about these SK takes is they're really intricate, and there's a beauty in that complexity. But a lot of the time in CG sports, those kinds of strategies are seen as non-viable because you can't be as precise as you'd like to. Now, there's some compensation going on in that regard. Specifically, I'd like to reference SK's bringing of Capitao on Jarvis every round. The cool thing about those bolts is you can be very, very specific about where you want the actual smokes and firebolts to go. So the utility that you have isn't up to a random projectile that can go any which way, depending on how you throw it. It just always lands where you're aiming. And there's really a lot you can work with that, and SK is making the most out of it. But at the same time, this sort of mentality when it comes to strategy is counter to what a lot of the top Siege teams will typically use, which is an understanding of the strategy and a good basic idea, followed up by, good synergy and coordination.
So we'll see how much of that good synergy and coordination can happen in this particular round. Space Station Gaming going downstairs into Garage will now run the gamut on the 3 sites. So the prediction that we would see all 3 sites has already come true, and it's only taken 3 rounds to get there. The push is going to be on that park bench wall through the through the two windows, as we can see right now. Houghton will manage to get the Mira in bathroom. So you mentioned that having the Mira in bathroom is a particular power position for them to play on. Absolutely. Even when you're defending downstairs in garage, it can bear some fruit for the team, but it's already been dispatched. Will force Space Station Gaming to fall off.
Yeah, interesting that they bring it when they're defending the basement, but not when they're defending the middle floor.
Yeah.
Both times viable, though. Now, SK has been ruthlessly efficient at dealing with that mirror window, as well as everything else they've ever done. And I like that every single player has a position that is known to them on where they, on a job that they know they need to accomplish. When it looks like an SK player is out of position, it's actually just they have a job that you can't see yet, and that's something worth noting. Now, of course, Mint inside of Piano on his job going to be trying to soft destruct his way into the site, opening up as many angles as possible to potentially get a pick, but I think most importantly, just push a lot of the anchors off of their best anchor positions.
And something that we've actually been seeing quite a bit of, and this might result in a kill depending on how it goes. Nope, they will move at the last second. There is a position here in the room that's called the antechamber to be able to use a breaching charge to get a kill on somebody playing behind that white van. It looked like they were going for that. Chala, who will now be playing the Jaeger in place of Shuttle, is situated on yellow stairs. In a good position to see anybody who could possibly come down. He's going to take a fight but then peel off.
So this is the real complication for SK. They want to make the push in through the garage. You can see they're setting up to do just that, but they've only got a Hibana hole to make it happen. Without a thermite, this becomes more complicated.
You can see all the XK, or my apologies, the lifeline that'll be applied, and it will be used up to burn the ADSs. Pojo Man in main lobby eliminates Chala. That's the Jaeger. It will be our first kill, and it will take 2.5 minutes to go in. Redeemer spots the plant going down in front of white stair, or in front of white van, but Nyx will be able to get a kill on the Thinking Name. Space Station Gaming are losing resources fast. A great C4 from Rampy will be answered by Houghton. His Shuttle is also there to take out Pojo. The gap will narrow. The plant will have to go down. Space Station trying to engage, but there's only one on site at the moment. It's Redeemer. Shuttle getting a great kill onto Nyx. Running at a time. You'll see Redeemer have to push up. Shuttle very low on health. Playing in Piano, Redeemer will now work his way to the top of yellow stairs. He sees Mint. And Hot and Cold is last man standing. He has a very tiny window to look through here, through those X-Karos, but he'll have two members of Space Station Gaming to deal with. Could he possibly get pushed from yellow stairs? Shuttle in a position to possibly go for the frag. Nobody watching yellow stairs. Houghton comes in and he takes full advantage of it. Shuttle and Redeemer both looking the same angle. No coverage for the flank whatsoever, and SK Gaming will lock that round away.
Great clutch there from Houghton. Not an easily winnable situation despite how it may look because of the size of that hole. It being so small, the one he'd opened earlier in the garage panel. His only real play was to push to yellow stairs, which is exactly what he did. And I like that he did it without hesitation, knowing that it was unlikely for the defenders to stick to the disable of the diffuser that early in the retake. A nice try there from SSG, though. They almost made that happen in the end with a 2-to-1 advantage in terms of man count that could have potentially swung their way.
It got very narrow there. I was impressed with the way that Space Station Gaming were able to come back and take so much of an advantage that SK had away from them, especially with the way the Mint was playing up on the vending machines on yellow stairs, looking into Piano. I think expecting Shuttle to still be up there, not knowing that he'd rotated at that point back to site.
Speaking of narrow, we saw a lot of that from SK yet again. The problem with SK takes, and it's very impressive at the same time, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I suppose, is they're so specific in how they execute. Their timing is impeccable, and at least it has been so far in this match. I'm noticing a different SK than what I'm used to here, and that's also worth talking about, but later. They're so well-timed that it can be kind of disrupted entirely. The whole strat can be disrupted entirely by someone throwing a wrench in the gears. And that makes it, a very small window of opportunity for SK Gaming. And hitting that window is exceedingly difficult. So impressive that they've managed to do it twice now.
The term is threading the needle.
Threading the needle,
they've been able to thread the needle very well. For Space Station Gaming, though, the scoreboard shows 2-1. If it weren't for that diffuse, and just in terms of pure fragging potential, it has been SK all the way down. You can see 3 kills for Shuttle, 2 of which were very low impact frags when he was left in almost an unwinnable position. And then, of course, the one in the last round. Favoring the pistol. Interesting to see that he keeps going back to that pistol time and time again. But for this round in particular, back to the lobby Space Station will go. They know that now that the rotation is done, they can go back to the only site where they've been able to win. And as you can tell from the way that SK is playing, it's going to look similar, but not the same. You've got the Capitao of Jarvis positioned right now on the spiral windows. You can hear what sounds to be some X-Kairos going off, some shotgun work being done as well from the defense. But there you go. All 3 rounds of the X-Kairos are being applied to the bathroom doorway to try and potentially cut off any push, or rather, there you go. So 2 on one side of the bathroom, 1 on the other side to open those walls up.
I guarantee you that SSG is going to be paying close attention to that Z hallway, which is where you see Hot and Cold looking just outside the bathroom right now. Redeemer will get Nyx, and no refrag from Houghton as he plays the angle just far too tight. Redeemer whips out the pistol, and he can move a lot faster, but the second challenge is from Pojo, and he will get that kill. Redeemer no longer able to wreak havoc from his position inside of bathroom, and it has effectively been disabled as well, thanks to those Hibana X-Scaros.
You've got Thinking Nade playing the upstairs bathroom along with Shuttle, so you've only got 2 bodies on site right now, but there is the drop available on console office. The push will be swift. Thinking Nade in a position to possibly go for the drop as well, but Houghton will take out Rampy, leaving only 1 body on site, and that's Chawa. Thinking Nade and Shuttle are going to have to make up ground real fast because the plant is going down. SK Gaming just biding their time. Chawa on spiral stairs. There was no coverage. Hot and Cold will get Shuttle as he drops. Jarvis takes out Chala, and it's all up to Thinking Nade, who will have to lumber his way down yellow stairs. Overheal or not, he still has those 3 stim pistols ready, but Houghton is positioned at the bottom of the stairs. He'll get marked, and a very quick peek. SK has been doing such an excellent job of using their drones and coordinating with one another, especially even though Redeemer did get the opening frag. I believe it was onto Nyx in the bathroom. He got marked, had Houghton there, Houghton missed his shots, but Pojo was there to get it. These are great crossfires being established, and this might actually be the tightest game that we've seen SK Gaming play against an opponent so far this season.
Yeah, tightest game, but also the way that SK keeps executing is exactly that. It's tight. It's so precise, and it actually makes me worry because, again, the more precise you get with these strategies, the more specific your intention is with them, the easier they become to counter. So at any point, if Space Station decide to start maybe just getting a little bit more aggressive, taking the fight to their opponent, we could see this start spiraling out of control for SK. However, they have been doing a great job of shutting down any fight back that Space Station has ever had. I mean, when we saw Redeemer, I believe it was, inside of the bathroom just now, he managed to get Nyx, but he couldn't extend that any further because there were 2 players clamped down onto him as soon as he gave away his position, even rotating and still biting the bullet. So SK has been on top of every potential issue that could be thrown at their strategies, and it's really, truly impressive. SSG, on the other hand, I can't see SSG playing bad right now. I wouldn't accuse them of playing terrible, but they're not doing as much as they need to really fight back.
I would say maybe not terrible is a word I don't think I would use to describe the way they're playing.
But that's the interesting thing is, it looks like they're getting really defeated, but they're not.
They're very uncoordinated when the pushes are happening. I don't think they're expecting them to happen as quickly as they are. Number 1, but number 2, they always get caught looking the wrong way. I have not seen Space Station Gaming be able to take an engagement and win it and crack things open. It's been SK largely even when SK's losing the first kill, they're still right there to answer back and usually take more than they lost.
I'm not sure if it's SSG just not facing the right way, or if it's SK trying to distract them and being successful in that endeavor. Because, I mean, think about it like this as well. Every single SK strategy we've seen so far has included players that seemingly aren't part of the strategy actually influencing it directly. So, for example, Zofia sitting outside of connector window, using her lifelines to distract any players in connector when attacking the top floor. I mean, you normally wouldn't expect someone to be there during an execution onto the B site, but she has made herself useful, and it's so deliberate. It's clearly thought out. So I think SK are just doing a really good job at covering all of their bases, and it's actually kind of beautiful.
Also, part of it has been the fact that SSG is still so committed to roamers,
yeah,
when in all reality, SK has been picking off the site players and forcing the roamers to have to retake.
Yeah.
And that is something from Space Station Gaming. I'm a little surprised that they haven't tightened it up and realized, hey, let's stick some more bodies on site and play a little bit closer, because our support players, our site players, they're getting eaten alive. We need to be able to bail them out, or else we're going to find this gap continue to grow. We are on the last attacking round, though, for SK Gaming, so they will go on to defense no matter what happens. A 4-1 would be quite a play here. Shuttle on yellow stairs will try to take care of the Dokkaebi and work his way down. Dokkaebi pulling out the DMR will give his position away, and Shuttle will retreat to the back of yellow stairs. So Nyx right now is largely uncontested on yellow stairs, just waiting. But SK, once again, they're lined up by that window, waiting for the push to all happen in unison. This is a good position for Shuttle. He could potentially shut all this down.
Yeah, but he's going to have to time his push perfectly as he's dealing with a multiple-way crossfire from SK. And if they're aware of him on those yellow stairs, at any point, he becomes shut down, nullified effectively. But he's in that great position still, and he's waiting for the push from SK. Oh no, a missed bolt, which means there's no cover for Hotton as he pushes in the main lobby. Chala will secure that kill easy. And the firebolt will try to cover the drop down. And Nyx gets a kill, and Mint follows up.
Attackers activated.
The diffuser has been planted. Mint another one onto Chala. Redeemer will get Nyx as he gets shut down. It's looking worse and worse for SK in this post plant. Now, last time they were here, they didn't make it work, but they're going to get better positions outside that front door.
I like the way that Mint has read this. He realizes that he has all of upstairs completely to himself, Michael, and he's got half the time. It's going to make it very difficult for them to be able to come back, but Jarvis will get taken up from Rampy, and as you can see, SK just needs to wait.
Mint's going to get one as he attempts to progress up those spiral staircase. It's not an easy angle to challenge, and Mint will get the second. It looked like we actually saw the Lion get the kill, but Mint from Spiral doing a lot of work for his team. The vertical play, as well as the horizontal, the whole round, really.
Snakes the kill with one shot to the Achilles heel, and that's all it takes. What an opening gambit from SK Gaming here. 5 rounds, they'll walk away with 4 of them. And it's very interesting the way to see that the operator bans play into this style of, I suppose, aggression or lack thereof. And the reason why I say this, you'd think that with a Thermite ban and potentially a Ying ban, attacking on Consulate is going to be even more difficult than before, and that this should maybe favor the defenders to win.
No, I look at this and I see the bans from SK, and I think that everything that they're playing, or the entire way that they're playing right now is very deliberate. They didn't want Echo on the board so they can get the plant, and they didn't want to deal with the Thermite for the push.
So, Garage is going to be where SK goes. I was going to say that conventional wisdom would suggest that losing a Ying and losing a Thermite to any team is going to completely change the way that you play. But it's interesting because even though that might be conventional wisdom, the complete opposite has happened. Every time, at least that I have recorded, every time that we see a Thermite ban from the board, it's the attackers that are always consistently winning. And it could be because we're not seeing an Echo, it could be because we're not seeing a Mira, but it's been amazing that the bans on the attacker side really haven't been as influential as you would think. It's the defenders ban, and that was the point I was trying to make, was that the defensive bans have been so crucial to all teams. Anywho, so round number 6, first defense for SK Gaming, and Space Station are right now not in the greatest of shape. SK Gaming needs 1 round in order to tie and walk away with a point and not suffer a loss, whereas Space Station Gaming are the closest that they've ever been to possibly taking their first defeat of the season.
Attackers recovered the bomb diffuser. Attackers' objective is to defuse
SK
the bomb.
holding on to the basement. They are going to bring that Mira. We talked about that earlier. Having her can allow for some diversity in the strategy. Space Station, they weren't the ones to ban out Thermite, so they're going to have to work around that ban. Meanwhile, SK, very deliberate there. They already had the strategies in place, so that's going to be interesting to see how Space Station adapts on the fly to not having a Thermite. You got to imagine that they're practiced in it, and you can see they have a strategy at least thought out somewhat, which is take from the east. Now, the problem with an east side take going into locker hallway is you, no matter what, are forcing yourself into 2 bottlenecks. Even if you open the drop down so you can do some vertical damage, it's going to be a difficult attack strategy. And based on the slow nature of this take from Space Station so far, I don't think that they're worried too much about the drop downs, which means it's a lot of pressure on Pojo to hold this hallway as he gets called. I'm not sure if the attackers even know he's here. The basic of the proximity here from Chala actually is going to cost him his life. Rampy will get Jarvis, though, in response, so at least it's not all lost here for SK SK Gaming, as they attempt to hold on. Pojo through the wall will lose out to Thinking Nade. And SK have effectively lost control over the server stack.
And good play from Thinking Nade there to go for the kill through the wall, knowing that Pojo had given his position away with the blast of his shotgun. And you could see for a second, I think Pojo expected the push from behind, possibly from Visa stairs, as he pivoted to look where Jarvis had died. But that was actually Rampy at the hatch above. So a bit of, it looked like it might have been a bit of a miscommunication from SK Gaming there, and SSG capitalized. And we have, at the moment at least, the best start to a round that we've had for Space Station Gaming in 6 rounds. They need this. They need to find themselves in a position where they can get that confidence back, because this game is slowly slipping away from them.
It certainly is. As the time starts to run down, while Space Station have that man advantage, and they even have a nice bit of control here. Redeemer pushing in through security hallway, and he is being unabated. He gets a free kill onto Hot and Cold, so that's going to be an extension of that lead, but he will be downed at least. Able to inch his way back as Nick's not going to secure the frag. Mint in the main lobby will get Shuttle and a nice flank. Space Station, oh, Nix, what a peek under Redeemer, but doesn't get the second frag. Falls off the angle, all the while the diffuser is being planted inside of Kitchen. And that's going to beat Rampy. A good spot to hold that up, but Mint from behind somehow losing his engagement, and it's going to be back and forth, a bit of a dance. Nix now will push into Kitchen and get Thinking Nade on that push. Rampy with very little HP is going to have to clutch against 2 SK members. We'll get one. What a headshot onto Mint. Goes for the second. Nick's trying to outplay. There's not a whole lot of time on this diffuser, though. He's going to have to make his way back to the site quickly. Rampy hears his opponent from behind. Positions himself accordingly. With so little time, Rampy is going to be able to deny this diffuse disable. Nix goes down, and what a clutch from the Dokabi from SSG.
All Mint had to do was possibly hold an angle, ADS waiting for the push from the Dokabi, but couldn't zoom in time, allowing that SMG-12 to get the kill. And then Rampy played that so well. He had next to no HP. All he had to do was stay alive, and he kept running around trying to use every surface at his disposal and every wall at his disposal to keep a line of sight cut off. And of course, knowing that you're being chased by a 3-armor Mira, you've got a bit more of a speed advantage at your disposal. And as we've said for the last couple weeks, the SMG-12, which is just an absolute pocket rocket, replacing what used to be called the SMG, or the SMG-11 with the ACOG. A lot of people called that the pocket rocket. I think the SMG-12 is really, it's really something. And Rampy, even on 2 HP, was able to get the win there, because unfortunately for Nix, he just ran out of time. So Space Station Gaming, a bit of a scary mid-round transition for them, especially after the post-plant, but they were able to get it where they needed it the most, and SK Gaming find themselves once again going back down to Garage. The biggest issue for me, if I'm SK Gaming, was the fact that there was 0 coverage on the double doors leading into pipes. There was nobody watching Redeemer, and as you said, he was able to get that free kill on the Bandit with nobody really challenging him at all.
Yeah, a huge oversight by SK. I mean, even if you're not going to put a player to watch it from security, possibly, you need to put some barbed wire, maybe, some sort of prompt, a lesion trap, you know, anything, a Gersmot. Whatever the case, they did not, and because of that, it was easy for Space Station, or specifically Redeemer, to pick apart that defense. Now, apart from that, there was also the roamers on the server side of, or the east side, I suppose, of this bottom floor that were ineffectual, really. They didn't get anything done. Because of that, there's a man advantage already given in Space Station's favor.
It looks like we're going to see a spawn peek as the round starts, and Hot and watching, but he'll fall off immediately. It's a bit of a gamble just because of the fact that there is a Blackbeard that is going to be run almost every single round. I imagine we will probably not see Redeemer play another operator on attack as high of a number as he does on the Blackbeard. That is typically what we will see him play, and this is a great map to do that. We talk about how important Blackbeard is on cutting off rotations and holding angles, but because of the very nature of Consulate, especially on both the lobby and the main, and on the floor above Consulate, the console office, that Blackbeard has so much command. Oh, just for a second there, actually, I think Jarvis got spotted for just a second, whether he has his device on or not. He sees one, a great shot onto the head of Rampy. The Lion is down, no EE1D will be available. That's a big early push, and Pojo will take out Chala, and Jarvis going for one to finish off inside a server. This is a great start for SK Gaming right now.
Exactly the opposite of what we saw in the previous round. Redeemer also goes down on yellow stairs, but not to be secured yet. The Nitro Cell will be the follow-up. Will it secure? Yes, it will. will. Redeemer goes down, and Thinking Nade in Visa eliminated as well. Or at least downed. Shuttle now the last attacker, 1v5. You gotta imagine the odds are not exactly in his favor. It's probably going to be an SK defense success, which will put them on match point. 5 rounds means they cannot lose, but they haven't won quite yet. Now Shuttle gonna move into server. He could fight back, and he will get nicks. It's a very nice shot.
Attackers have located a bomb.
He's gonna have to secure 4 more though.
No, and I mean, there have been so many rounds now where we've seen Shuttle just last man standing in basically impossible situations for his team. He sees the red dot underneath. He'll take out Pojo, man. Great push. So he's got 2 right now, but his luck will run out as Mint is there to finish off Shuttle and Jarvis, who downed Thinking Nade earlier on. This will put SK on match point. So what happened there in particular? Space Station Gaming did not change their strategy whatsoever. They waltzed right in through Visa, they broke the Visa hatch, and they all tried to drop, and SK just said, oh, they're probably going to do the same thing, and that's exactly what happened. And they were there to greet them, all led off by Jarvis. Playing that angle, when the hatch got broken, it did look like for a second there the IQ of Thinking Nade had seen him. I suppose not, because then as the rest of the team came in, very swiftly beheading the Lion, and not just taking the Lion out, but also how important that gadget can be to pin down the defenders, gave you a lot of breathing room and a lot of, I guess, a lot of latitude for Space Station Gaming, or for SK Gaming rather, to make the rotates that they needed to and stack up bodies in server. It completely stopped Space Station Gaming's push, and now we find, like I said, match point. We're going to go to the main floor of lobby, and a very similar looking composition for both teams.
Absolutely. Not a lot of changes here. 6 picks making a lot of sense as well. Lion, Mute, both very useful on Consulate.
Attackers need to
Can be
locate and
used to
defuse as
simply
many bombs as they
deny the
can.
drones into the site, or you can use him in a great way upstairs to roam solo or with a squad and deny the information to the attackers. Well, main lobby's been an interesting site so far for this match, and we've seen it defended actually more times than most. About even with the bottom floor. Top floor only seeing 1 so far, kind of interesting. A little bit counter to the norm, I suppose. But each team honestly has their preference on Consulate, and you could defend any site more than any other site. They're all kind of the same amount of viable.
5 seconds to go.
Yeah, but I think we can all say that seeing lobby the most out of all the sites is not a common occurrence.
No, I mean, it's definitely uncommon. It's not ridiculous or anything. It's it's not crazy to assume, but it is uncommon. You're right.
So we'll see what Space Station Gaming can change this time around. The couple sample sizes that we had for lobby from SK Gaming is probably a play that we're going to see Space Station Gaming not go with, which was a rush trying to push in through the back of the map, go in through the hallway, take control of the circle desk or main lobby, and then try and cut off Piano. Now, one thing that Space Station Gaming wasn't able to do was hold on to that top floor control, and SK Gaming took complete advantage of that. How much of an investment are we going to see out of SK Gaming here to make sure that that second floor does not bother to fall into the hands of their opponents?
Well, it's likely going to be quite a lot. As you can see, we've got a lot of utility, a lot of roamers all set themselves up on that top floor. SK going to be invested heavily in holding it. Nick's inside a bathroom. He's going to be able to delay quite a lot as a Legion. As the round continues to play out, more traps will flood into his pocket, and he can dish them out to anywhere he chooses.
Pojo downstairs is going to be interesting to keep an eye on. That's your pulse in the basement, trying to see about the push going into the main lobby floor. I don't think he's been detected just yet, but Redeemer, oh my goodness, will be the first casualty. The Blackbeard down, hot and cold, will peek outside of that main doorway in lobby and get the very first kill. But you can see there are being some marks at the moment right inside of projector room. So Space Station Gaming committing very heavily into ensuring that all those bodies on the second floor are dispatched. Very similar to what we saw SK Gaming do when they had to attack the site.
Cotton with a well-placed C4 to try and counteract the EE1D. The question is, will it be successful as the push likely comes into projector? You've got Jarvis and Min upstairs trying to hold it firm. And they will be successful in at least that endeavor so far in this round. Space Station are slow to aggress. They finally have projector control though, and they're going to try and extend that into connector control as they continue to push.
So Space Station Gaming have not been as efficient in order to take down the defenders, but as I say that, Mint will finally get found, and that is your Smoke, who was playing up top. SK Gaming are just gradually retreating room by room, but still not conceding that second floor. And you can see through 3 members, almost 4 members of Space Station Gaming, all positioned by that projector room, they've only got 30 seconds left. They grab the diffuser and will use the final gadget that Lion has at his disposal, and SK Gaming will have to wait for the time being. Shuttle will pick up his second kill. That was Hot and Cold playing down in the main lobby, who will be found. Nick's creeping his way down yellow stairs, will look towards the hallway of spiral stairs. He sees one, but loses that engagement. A great shot from Thinking Nade there. And SSG look like they're not going to be putting it away just yet, but Pojo will stop the plant. Chala gets down through a pretty typical rotate hole through the bottom floor. Rampy takes out Jarvis, and Pojo, last man standing. He'll come in, he'll take out the Lion. He sees the diffuser going down. Can he fall off in time? Pojo losing it. He'll have to run outside and go for a play, but Shuttle started things off, will also finish things off. Space Station Gaming, just by the hair on their chinny chin chin, will get that diffuser down and waltz out of the front door, holding on and staving off defeat, at least for the time being. To round 9 we go.
SSG played that about as conservatively as possible. They only got control over Projector, and once they had that, they started focusing entirely on the push into the site to get that diffuse plant. Now, unfortunately for SK, they didn't have a lot in the way of direct diffuse denial. They had the C4 from below, which was huge, but they were putting a lot of emphasis on that top floor hold, and it ended up working against them because as soon as they had lost it, which they lost, I mean, it took a while. It took a lot of manpower from SSG, but it did happen. They effectively lost the round. A nice attempt at a hold, though, from SK, although a better attack from SSG.
So we'll see some swap-offs here on the 6 picks. A Mute and a Lion. Basically set us up in a very similar position. Here's the big difference maker. You've got Redeemer now playing the Lion. He swapped off with the Blackbeard. I think he's realizing that the Blackbeard at this point is not doing quite as well as he needs to. And their assumption would be that SK Gaming will probably go back to the lobby. You can see that that's exactly what happened. So SK Gaming will go to that main lobby. You can probably get more usage out of a Dokkaebi than you will a Blackbeard on this site, depending on the way that Space Station's overall strategy works.
Yeah, Blackbeard's not immensely useful on this site unless you're trying to clear the top floor. You could still kind of make him work on those windows upstairs. However, there's other ways to get that done, and ultimately I think switching him off is probably the right call from SSG. Now, they're likely to commit to it yet again, an admin push, and then once they get that admin push down, get Projector, vertical control, and plant inside of B. But SK probably going to be ready for that. We'll see what changes come out.
I liked what SK was doing. So as you saw, they were giving Space Station Gaming, they weren't giving it to them, but as Space Station Gaming were taking each room progressively, SK Gaming were just falling back room by room by room, as I said, not conceding the second floor, but giving up more of that map control to the attackers, which is fine until Space Station Gaming committed fully to clearing that second floor and then getting the one planter down, which was Chala, who they've moved off on his own. He's been tasked with trying to get that plant down. As you can see, it is also reflected on the scoreboard. He is, at the moment, the lowest performer of anybody on either team, and that reflects more of a support role nature than it does his fragging potential. We've said this many times. Support players, their contributions are not necessarily numerical, so to speak. But they'll waltz in at the moment to that admin office or open area, move their way towards the copy room, and look towards long desk. They will burn one of 2 Lion calls, and then a set of Dokkaebi calls also, just to kind of hold everything in place.
Chala wary of this angle from downstairs. Easy access from tellers, or passport as some call it. Pojo Man on the long angle will be eliminated. Chala, good read there. Poorly timed from the Pulse to try and get that kill. I like the angle, but it was not played properly.
And that's critical because if you recall last round, Pojo got the C4 through that hatch in main lobby to stop the plant from going down. That was really the only major saving grace that SK had last round. So it's been taken away. They're going to have to play a lot better in determining whether Space Station Gaming can take map control away. Mint's going to get the first kill for his team. That's Thinking Nade off the board. The IQ goes down, but Jarvis will also take out Redeemer. The Lion was used and a Logic Bomb used, so both of those will be gone. So no more Lion utility, no more Ying utility, just the smoke grenades, as Space Station Gaming are now trying a lot harder to take control of that projector room because they've lost a lot of utility and gadgetry in the meantime to get hold of it. They'll use the XKROS just behind long desk to try and put more pressure on the defenders playing in there, which happen to be, at the moment, Mint with Jarvis not too far off.
The spray from Rampy will see no result, and Mint will push into the flank of Chala, but choose not to shoot him and only get the single kill. So Space Station will still be alive in this round thanks to that. Good virtue from Mint. Now, Jarvis is still on the roam, and he is kind of pinned over by Connector CEO. It looks like Space Station has kind of given up on taking the top floor, though. They're now mostly focused on pushing into the site. It's a dangerous prospect, though, as there are still quite a lot of anchors from SK. Timing there for Nyx, and Shuttle and Chala will get one each, leaving Jarvis the final defender. With so little HP, he will down Chala, though able to withstand on the diffuser. 5 seconds left. Jarvis needs to play this perfectly to deny the defuse plant. The drop down's not opened. Marks coming from the cameras, and Jarvis through the floor will get Shuttle and end the map. SK take it 6-3.
What a call to mark exactly when they needed to. Was that a default cam that was still left up? Because there was no Maestro and no Valkyrie. You leave the default cam above the door, and what happens there? Well, you just simply run at a time, and you don't have the foresight or the wherewithal to do something that usually happens, which is shoot out those default cams. That was very, very close to possibly being another blown round for SK, with Space Station Gaming doing so well in that final stretch. But the first loss of the season for the team that headed into the day, first overall, and it'll be SK Gaming's second in a row and their second of this season.
Yeah, they've been starting to ramp up as we progress through the season. SK looking much better and better and better. SSG still on form, though. I mean, they made a lot of right calls there. Yes, there were some mistakes made by SSG, but the reason they rotated off of that top floor take is they saw the reinforced drop down in projector, and they thought to themselves, oh, we don't need top floor control if the drop down's reinforced, because the defenders cannot effectively use that top floor control to deny the plant inside of main lobby. And that would have been true if they had shot the default cam.
And outside of the default cam, a bit of an interesting call from SK to also reinforce that drop down. You got to imagine that that was done because they were confident they'd be able to hold that projector throughout the entire round, because let's say you're in a situation where they don't have that default cam up. Jarvis is blind at that point. He has no calls, and when we say blind, that means you don't have any calls. Of course, Jarvis is not actually blind. Hopefully not blind, because if so, that was a great performance. But
that would be unfortunate.
That would have been very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I think that was a very bold move from SK with the potential for disaster, but they stuck it out at the last second. As always, if you think that there was somebody who deserves the praise of the most valuable player, well, you have the opportunity to vote. There will be 4 individuals that will be on our Twitter where you can turn in your opportunity and directly a direct democracy by voting for your most valuable player on the poll at our Twitter.
And you can do so right down below. That match, though, was just one of a few we have for today.
2 more to go.
2 more to go. And yes, again, that's just 3 for the day overall, if you're just joining us. But I think the result, I want to say something that people didn't expect, but nobody could be wrong with technically with a 50-50 split. So I guess you could have been on either side of that field. I'm still kind of amazed we managed to pull out a 50-50 exact.
Yeah, it's astonishing, to say the least. But we've got an interview for you. Nyx, the newest member of SK Gaming, for the second time. It looks like you've shaved off the sideburns this time around.
I have.
When I was younger, I used to have some pretty nice... I also had mutton chops at one point, but I think that right now, I don't think the chops are in, man. Good luck. So, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, very first question here. The way that we saw your team play Consulate against Obey Alliance just a couple days ago was so remarkably different from what we saw today. Were these 2 competing strategies that you'd been working on ahead of time, if you're willing to disclose that, or is this style of gameplay something that you've come up with in the couple days after the qualifiers ended?
We're a team that adapts really well. So over time, we knew, like, after the Obey match, obviously we didn't get the result that we wanted. So we realized that we needed to do something to prepare for SSG, knowing that they were probably going to want to take us to Consulate. So we just prepared for the match like how we always do, watch VODs, go over what we need to do as a team, and then, ran new stuff, basically, yeah.
So this was something new that came out from you over the last couple days. I mean, it worked really well. It looked like SSG were struggling on attack in order to, I guess, greet where you were coming from. And the last question is very specifically about that second attack that SSG had. Now, the very first time Space Station Gaming attacked, they were able to take Visa, they jumped in through server, and they were able to push you back. The second attack, they did basically the same thing, but you were there prepared, especially Jarvis and Pojo Man, to stop them. If you can take us through just for a second the team's call there, did you know they were going to do the same strategy? Were you anticipating it? How did that work for you?
Yeah, so after the first time they did it, we knew that they were going to do a backtick even the first round, and we ended up just losing it due to a few mistakes on our part. And then we knew the second round they were going to do a backtick again. And we just made the change that instead of Mint rotating down to site, Mint was able to play bathroom hatch and look down all the way to the long hallway that for pipe hall, and he cuts that off completely so that hot and cold can go help Jarvis and Pojo. That's why Jarvis and Pojo were able to get those kills, because they had hot and cold helping him to alleviate pressure. And
something that we often miss is the ability for people to support the frag getters. Now, I mean, we've said this so many times, just because you have a high amount of frags doesn't mean you accomplish them all themselves. But you've been doing great in particular. Your team now 2 wins back-to-back. Congratulations. Anything to say to your fans, your family, or the viewers before we end the interview?
Just thank you for everything. I'm very thankful. Thank you for the support in our team.
Take care.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks. So interesting that they were able to make that work, because it was only like 3 days ago that they lost to Obey on concept with completely different strategies. And from the sounds of it, they made them up over the past couple days and really grinded them out. And I mean, if there were weaknesses there, which I'm sure there were, Space Station Gaming weren't able to find them.
Yeah, and I think SK, in the note of strategy, has kind of elevated themselves. And one thing for teams to look out for in the future, as is clear from their last couple matches, is SK is used to playing without Thermite, and you should expect that Thermite ban. Now, this is something that we haven't really talked about with the operator ban phase before, but there's a lot of a potential for a specific team to clamp down on a specific operator and say, we don't want to play with this, period, throughout the rest of the season. And they can always ban that operator. And if you're talking about one particular operator that's great to do that with, it's Thermite. You ban Thermite, and there's so much just can't be done on multiple maps. So SK clearly are engineering their strategies around a lack of Thermite and are playing into that with their ban phase, which is really cool to see.
And it's bamboozled certain teams, not only through the bans, but also the way that they've played around the possible defensive operator bans too. So we can go and we can do some more theory crafting in our next 2 matchups, but we'll give you a brief break in the meantime, and we'll come back with match number 2 on the day.
5 seconds remaining. Attackers need to protect the... Attackers activating. Attackers... C4 activated! Has been dropped. Seconds remaining. Attackers bombed attackers. 5 seconds to go. Attackers.
Stylish on the outside, savage on the inside. Legion by Lenovo.
And welcome back to North American Playday number 4. If you're just joining us, you saw an exciting 6-3 victory for SK Gaming, the first loss of the season for Space Station. And now we turn to Evil Geniuses versus Mouse. The two teams that I believe entered today at 3rd and 4th, very, very close to one another. It'll be an interesting contest, to say the least.
Yeah, EG versus Mouse, you know, and we've talked a lot about conventional wisdom and how it has been kind of falling flat in some factors of this season. And you would expect this to be an outright, you know, historically you would look at EG versus Mouse and you'd think, okay, yeah, EG, you know, they're the favored team. Speaking of which, let's bring up their roster. BC, Canadian, Necrox, Young, NVK, you know them. I mean, if you've ever watched any North American Pro League, I think...
What have you been doing if you don't know who this team is?
Right, exactly.
It's been the same roster for like 2.5 seasons now.
But conventional wisdom be damned in this season so far. We've seen a lot of really big mix-ups and a lot of huge upsets, and I can safely say that this could go either way. And I know we sometimes say that a lot, but it's always worth noting when it's so emphasized.
The new rule set has created this unpredictability where, as you said, conventional wisdom is not quite as conventional as it is. And a team that seems to have benefited from it, Mouse Sports, Beastly, Hyper, Neptunes, Vandal, and Vertical. Hyper has been an excellent addition to this team. He replaced Mark the Shark in the offseason, jumping into the team. His immediate impact on the team has been incredible. But another story is how well they've been able to use Vandal. Now, a lot of it has been on attack when they've been rolling him out with a Ying, pardon the pun, and that push around Vandal's play has been tremendous. But over the qualifiers over the last week, we saw a lot of teams counter-banning Ying. Now, Ying is obviously a pretty common ban to begin with, but seeing it get taken out is directly hampering Vandal's ability on the team, and the times that we see Ying banned, his performance and his impact for the rest of the roster seems to falter a little.
Yeah, and the problem is that Ying gets banned almost every single match these days. You don't often see him or Ying going unbanned. It's especially common in the North American region, I find. And it's kind of interesting that Ying is going to be the operator of choice to ban out for a lot of teams. I think it has a lot to do with just, hey, we want to be able to see what we're doing. Sometimes Ying is so good at countering any potential anchors. So, like, any position you conventionally would sit at is disabled if there's a Ying on the enemy team, effectively.
Absolutely, because, I mean, she has the ability to blind an entire site for quite a long period of time. So whether her impact is solely on fragging potential because you've seen her LMG have got a significant damage boost, or on her gadget alone, she sees a pretty big difference in how she gets played with certain teams. Let's head to the ban stage of our matchup and see where we're not going to play, and then, of course, where we are played. A quick refresher, as always. 2 maps are banned out, and then there's 5 remaining where teams will ban 2 apiece, and then we're left with the 5th. I know you want Villa. I know you want Villa again.
I just want to see the new stuff. I want it because we're seeing so many new intriguing things happening on the old maps as a result of the operator ban phase. Like we just witnessed SK with some great stuff, banning out Thermite yet again. But it's always cool to see new strategies evolve when teams don't really know what they're up to. You know, they don't know the details of the meta yet because it hasn't been forged. It's gone already, though. Evil Geniuses having none of that. They don't want to go to the unconventional map. And Clubhouse also being banned, so nor do Mouse. So last maps there are going to be Bank and Coastline.
They've got to ban Bank. If I'm Mouse, you know Evil Genius's stretch and history on that map in particular. You got to take care of Coastline. There you go. Bank is gone, so Coastline will be our matchup, which I know Evil Geniuses hate to play on. And I say this every single time you talk to either BC or Canadian, they will say the same thing. It is dreadfully hard to defend on Coastline. The attackers have an almost permanent advantage, and that seems to have been accelerated by the operator ban phase.
Yeah, and if you're wondering why they have such a permanent advantage, it's due to the giant hole in the middle of the map. That that huge hole, that open area, the the skylight, if you want to call it that, it effectively cuts off rotation on a good chunk of pretty much all of the top floor
About
hallways.
half of the map as well.
Really,
considering
yeah.
the bottom floor too.
If you were to take the whole map and you were to cut it down the middle, it is about half of the map overall. Well, maybe a third, but it's a lot. It's a big chunk of the map, and it's always attacker sided. So there's a lot to be said about that. But it's also that it pushes the sights up against the walls on the outside of the rest of the map. So it's a complicated map for defense to pull off, and I think usually when we see it work, it's due to crazy, weird plays or super aggressive plays from the defenses where they can usually get those defenses rolling.
And it's not very common to actually see teams put somebody up top and hold a hard angle. A lot of times, teams will actually completely vacate the roof, but if you're a defender and you don't have that information, are you going to take that chance? Are you going to gamble that somebody's not watching up there? Because I guarantee you, it's just like when teams put the Claymore over Oil Pit in Clubhouse. Nobody will rotate. Nobody will rotate into Garage on Clubhouse because they think the Claymore's there.
Yeah, at the top of the ladder.
But the one time the Claymore's not there and they go to rotate, you've now been able to take advantage of it. It's the same thing with Coastline, but the inverse, which is that you're not going to try to rotate when that skylight threat is looming over you, whether somebody's there or not.
Yeah, it is ever present. But there's a lot to be said about also just the executions. I mean, usually coming from the outside of the building. You know, as much as those that skylight is so scary. But let's take a look at the community vote. Who do you think is going to win this match? Just tell us.
50-50 last time around, the first time that we've actually seen a draw, and I'm a little surprised at this. Now, I understand that the Evil Geniuses fans are particularly passionate and in high numbers. I get that. But their performance this season has not quite been as much of a home run as in previous seasons, and Mouse has looked really good.
Yeah, if there's a couple of teams that I would put at the top of the board in terms of adapting to the new meta, and most notably the operator ban phase, we're talking about SK. We're talking about Mouse. If there's teams that are seemingly struggling to do just that, Evil Genius is up there. You know, as much as they are one of the titans of this game, one of the most well-known squads out there, period, they still have a lot of work to do when it comes to the operator ban phase and implementing any sort of strategy there.
They crushed Obey in their very first matchup on Oregon. They struggled against Cloud9 and they lost to SK. So if anything, that triumphant start for Evil Geniuses has diminished as time has gone on. It's lessened. And now as we load into the game and we head to Coastline for our second matchup of the day, you also got to realize the secret weapon here, which is that if you haven't followed along, previously, Canadian referred to two dudes, two fraggers, Hyper and Yaga, as the Brick Brain duo. They're his secret weapon, and half of them are in this game.
Yeah, so something that is going to have to be kept tabs on there. But the ban phase coming out, Mouse will ban out Glaz to begin. That's going to be a lot of pressure that can no longer be applied by the attacking side. First ban for the attack, though, for EG is going to be Ying, and that's typical. I feel like I haven't watched a match in a while with Ying in it.
This is to me a particular no-brainer. Number one, Evil Geniuses are going to have the footage of Mouse playing against Rogue on this exact map, wherein most of the pushes from Mouse Sports came with with Vandal tossing in all of his Candelas and the rest of the team just absolutely gobsmacking the defenders, playing in every single site. It was very rhythmic. It was great to see the way that Mouse executed, but it always played out very similarly. This is not just a counter to an operator who is frustrating to play against and potentially oppressive depending on the circumstances, but this is a direct counter to the way that Vandal plays too.
Yeah, if you put a Candela in just inside the door to Projector and you're attacking onto Penthouse, then all of the defenders in Projector are blind effectively. It's hard to avoid, honestly. All that said, though, here you have it, Glaz, Ying, Mira, Echo, and more of what we're used to, kind of your typical ban phase coming from these teams. Now, EG, you're going to be on attack, and Mouse will start on defense, and a Kitchen hold to boot as well. This is kind of interesting. So Kitchen is probably one of the more Mira-heavy sites. You know, you've got Penthouse as one of those as well, but Kitchen's I'd say number 2, and well, now that I'm thinking of it, I mean, you could even say the same word Double Bar, but Coastline in general, a Mira-heavy map, and Kitchen harder to defend without it.
It was Easley who actually said this during the qualifiers, that this map was almost designed with Mira in mind, which honestly makes sense because she released at the same time that this map did as well.
Yep.
And you really need her to help the defenders. Now, you've basically taken somebody who is already so good on every single map, but also particularly important here, and what they've done is they've removed her, and an already potentially lopsided matchup for the attackers has potentially gotten even more lopsided.
Absolutely. But it's all going to come down to how they set themselves up. And by they, I mean Mouse. Now, we talked about it earlier. A lot of what can give you a little bit more success on this map is, extended aggression, pushing out of the site, trying to hold on as much as you can to the control, very little control you do have as a defender. Because every inch really matters when you're dealing with only a few inches as compared to some other maps. Now, lots of soft destruction expected from Mouse onto this delivery entrance. It's going to be just in an attempt to counter the quick plant that could potentially happen when the attackers inching their way in through the door. Not very likely, an easily countered strategy, but still there's potential for it for EG.
So, Evil Geniuses and Mouse Sports will start things off. Kitchen is actually a site that, even though it's not... Okay, let's refer back to console for a second here. Kitchen is not unusual, but the interesting thing with Kitchen is the fact that it's really only seen such a rise in prominence over the last couple potential weeks. We saw it a little bit last season, but I mean, it's tough. It's not seeing as much play as it has this season, or it's not seen as much play as it has this season. Let me correct myself for a second here. I wonder how much of it is due to the meta, because a lot of times on Kitchen and on the bar downstairs, you'll want to run a Mira as well as a Castle. Neither of them are available for, or neither of them are on the board for Mouse Sports. Of course, the Mira is unavailable. It's intriguing to see the way that Coastline has consistently shifted, because I think teams are scrambling to try to find the most defendable site.
Yeah, we always say on Coastline all of the sites are equally defendable, but they're all equally difficult to defend is kind of the story there. If you finish the sentence, it becomes an attacker-sided map that we talked about earlier. So figuring out where you're most comfortable as a team can take time, and as BC gets the very first kill, that's Hyper gone. Neptune's as well from Necrox, and it's a flurry of kills for EG as they attempt to get another, but Vertical will respond on MVK. Canadian will get Vertical, so it's a back and forth. Now, Vandal is downed. Beastly, the very last defender, and the finish off from Young using the nade may be overkill, but at this point it might not really matter, given that Beastly, being the final defender, is against 4.
And they don't have the diffuser, but that's okay. They've got a lot of time, which right now is a major luxury to that team. 1 minute for them to go fetch that diffuser, begin to put pressure on top of the final member of Mouse. He'll get pushed from the buck from above. BC, who would typically play the buck, is now being used by Canadian, and Necrox will cross through that delivery doorway, manage to punish Beastly. Great round overall from Evil Geniuses there, and a good start for them.
They completely collapsed on those roamers upstairs. There was almost no contention whatsoever. Mouse were trying their best to hold on to Penthouse Projector, but ultimately they just couldn't. As soon as EG confronted them, stuck a barrel in their face, it was all over. And that's kind of the end of that round. There's not much more to say about it. Interesting the way that Mouse set themselves up, and I agree with the idea behind it. We don't have a Mira. We need to play this vertical, but the execution needs to be better.
Oh my. So, how is this going to work? EG bringing a completely different setup this time, and I completely agree with you here. One thing that we've seen about Mouse, we saw this in their Obey matchup. Obey 3-0'd Mouse, who stormed through the qualifiers and looked almost unbeatable. The only team that really gave Mouse a run for their money that I can recall right off the bat was SK Gaming. That they make it to the finals, and Obey absolutely obliterates them. 3-0. It was merciless. They cut right through them like a hot knife through butter. And Mouse just simply looked like they were lost a lot of the rounds. They didn't, it was very similar to what we just saw at Space Station Gaming, is, they didn't know, it didn't look like they know where they were coming from. The exact same thing just happened with Evil Geniuses, Michael. What happens is EG drops, and next thing you know, 3 members of Mouse are dead in seconds. They managed to answer one back, but then you've got poor Beastly all alone on the site as a Valkyrie with an MPX, trying to deal with the verticality of the buck above him, the possibility of still having EE1Ds and utility from the attackers, and it was they were crushed in the very first round. So how is Mouse Sports going to be able to find that groove that got them into the winners bracket final in the qualifiers?
10 seconds left.
Because right now, one round, not big enough, but not a good start.
And that's the danger of fully investing in your roamers. If you lose them, then it's pretty much over. And we've seen that. We've seen that before from a number of other teams, even from other squads. But Mouse setting themselves up now yet again on the same site. So no rotation here from Mouse. They've chosen not to go to a different site, instead trying to hammer out what they've got right in front of them. And I guess I can understand the idea there. You know, with Coastline, yeah, we talked about it. It's dynamic, but
That's not your drone.
it's someone else's.
That's not yours.
Oh man, actually NVK this time, by the way.
Yeah, that's not Nick's.
Are you sure? Wait, did
Not
they?
Nyx.
I thought they swapped.
It was a mid-round substitution.
Oh,
NVK came in, started playing for Nick's last time around, of course, but that's
My excuse is that my eyesight is failing me right now.
if only there was a device in real life
Listen.
that could make eyesight better. If
I'm
only there
working
were
on it.
multiple devices.
I'm working on it, Parker. We're getting there.
This time around, look at where they have the Evil Eye cams of Hyper set up.
Right.
They've got them in the hallway. That's 90%. A lot of people call that Jaeger spot because you're used to seeing where Maestro's standing, a Jaeger potentially playing, using that carbine to possibly duel off people from both of those positions. But NVK last time around as the Zofia just got both those Evil Eyes for free. Just walked right in, took care of them, and it was a really bad setup for Mouse. At least, for the time being, half of the round has gone. You can hear the IQ doing some work in the background. Canadian has control of Penthouse. He'll go for a nade onto the Legion, but oh no, the Legion will run out. And right into the waiting arms of Necrox, who almost misses, but Amar will land the kill.
Well, the hammer and anvil strategy from EG really working out. Hyper's still in the hallway though, and he's able to be a thorn in the side of EG as they push forward. He will get Necrox, but no secondary kill for him. Narrowly missing out on some shots there before Canadian shuts him down. The final minute, though, Evil Geniuses yet again have top 4 control. Now, the main difference here is Mouse still have 3 defenders left alive, and they're going to be able to anchor at least somewhat.
Presumably they have ADSs available for them on site to try and prevent any projectiles that can go in, and Evil Genius is running a frag heavy in terms of frag grenades lineup. They've got 4 available for them. We've only seen 1 get used so far, at least on screen, so there could possibly be some more utility there for them. They've also got the Hibana just for pure fragging potential. X-Kairos is depleted, meaning that it will mostly just be solely the Bearing 9, as well as that Type 89 there for kills. But once you said, that vertical control is going to be so important, and it's going to continuously provide a lot of discomfort for the defenders as that entire floor is destructible, and the defenders will have to keep rotating so that the attackers can find them.
Well, last 20 seconds, Evil Geniuses pushing their way in through delivery, and there's no denial here. BC has just inched his way into the site, and nothing from Mouse can stop this. As he attempts to start the plant, Canadian covering from above. Neptunes will get NVK elsewhere entirely. Young will get vertical, though, in the main lobby before being refragged by Beastly. Above, though, Canadian making that vertical presence so known, and BC still alive inside of delivery. Holds on to that diffuser, winning Evil Geniuses of the round.
And what happened there was they were able to clear out above and then use the buck to continuously push the defenders away from where they wanted to go. Now, for people that are not as well versed on how that vertical destruction or the verticality really plays in, yeah, you can throw out your skeleton key, you can throw out your sledgehammer depending on who you're playing as. Heck, you can even use Zofia with breaching charges, which is what we've seen a lot of teams been using recently.
Yeah.
In order to open up strategic holes to where people might be situated. Or you can use that verticality to completely remove the ceiling above the defenders so they can't play there. What that allows you to do is you take site control without actually being on the site by pushing the defenders back. Evil Geniuses were able to shove all the defenders into the back of Kitchen and then just hold the angles. Now, they lost a couple because of some unfortunate gunfights from their players, but ultimately the strategy was sound and it paid off. Diffuser went down, Evil Geniuses close out the round. Really, no debate as to whether Mouse was going to be able to take that back.
So a big part of the way that hold didn't work out for Mouse for me is just they haven't been holding on to Penthouse at all. They have players in Projector and the hallway outside of Projector, and it seems like they're putting emphasis on that top floor. But if you can't hold on to Penthouse, then you can't hold on to Projector, and that's just how it works. And now, on that note, here we go. Penthouse Projector, the site to be defended from Mouse. So they're going to have to shore up the exact same issue that I just referenced in order to successfully hold this site, except for they have one less layer to do it with.
Here's the problem. If they're not holding Penthouse this time around, they're in pretty bad shape here. So, but that verticality we said goes both ways. What can you do? Well, that entire ceiling over top of kitchen that's destructible also happens to be the floor of penthouse. So you can put the buck underneath it this time and do the same thing just inverted.
Yeah, and on that note, why don't we have a pulse right now from Mouse? I mean, they've been so focused on vertical play so far, trying to hold downstairs from above, and now no pulse to hold upstairs from below. I mean, kind of an interesting mix-up from them. I'm sure they're going to have roamers, but they're mostly focused on the horizontal. It's just a little bit of a shift.
First round, you were a little bit critical of the fact that they had a bit too much invested in their roam game. I think that was accurate, and then it bit them. So what did they do? They got a little bit more conservative with their roam game the second time around. We're seeing that timeline continue, which is now where they have very few bodies that far off site. Vertical is positioned inside of Hookah at the moment. It looks like he might actually be the farthest off site of that entire team. And Hookah to Projector is not that far of a run.
Right. I mean, the horizontal roam inherently, because it's horizontal, you can always get back to site, is going to be a less of a distance roam, no matter where it is, really. But I still, you know, there's something to be said about a full roam versus a light roam,
right?
And they've taken a huge shift from that. Now, it's working out for them so far,
first pick.
as they get the first pick onto Necroc. So good job to them, at least. And that is who exactly? The Lion.
The Lion.
So big.
So the Lion will not roar this round, but what thing that really does worry me is as this round goes down, unless Mouse can possibly capitalize and get another kill, they don't have any presence on that bottom floor, as you said. Unless my eyes deceive me, all 5 of their operators are upstairs, and you've got a buck below. A buck below is a very scary predicament to find yourself in. Evil Genius is putting a lot of focus at the moment on Hookah, and that is Vertical, who could be very, very little time, or could have very, very little time left. But he'll wisely play that couch. He'll get very aggressive. Vertical, who's got a great shot, will get one. Canadian from below takes out Beastly. The Hibana comes in. BC trying to engage, and he'll win that. He'll lose 50 health in the process. You've traded an IQ and a Lion for a Vigil and a Jaeger. Great positioning for Mouse right now.
One thing to be said about the SMG-12 is that it really does have a long reload if you expend all of those bullets. Hyper inside of Aqua gets killed by NVK. So good control on that south balcony from Evil Geniuses.
Vandal is the only one left on site because, as you can see, just by that luggage doorway is where the smoke is playing. Mouse, I'm not quite certain why they would use Hyper that way. Why do you take the fight through the door into Aqua when you know that there's under a minute left and you're tied up in man count? And now Evil Geniuses have taken a scenario which was very, very dangerous and managed to do quite well. Neptunes will eliminate Canadian, though. You can see there's one body downstairs. That's Neptunes. He'll work his way into Courtyard. That'll set us up for NVK versus Vandal up top and BC versus Neptunes down below. You can see NVK will try to burn that ADS using those concussive blasts. A Toxic Babe will go down onto that 90 spot, but this could be very bad for the smoke. The Legion is the last one left on site, but BC will go down. Great kill from Vandal, and NVK in rough shape. Looks like he's going to try to run in and take an engagement. He's going to out-duel Vandal. He'll get downed and finished off. A bit of sloppy gun work from both of them, but Vandal will just simply wear NVK down. No ability to withstand, and Vandal saving the round for his team before dropping through the hatch. Good timing overall, as Neptunes was still struggling to get back to site, and Mouse will take their first round.
And a very important first round, not allowing that 3-0 lead. The defense, as we said, can be a little bit hindered usually on this map, but as every single inch you get on that defense, every single round you get, puts you in a better position to win out. Now, the question is, running in my head right now is, what's going to happen when Mouse gets to attack? Because the way that they're defending is very aggressive. You know, even when they're not roaming vertically, they're roaming heavily on the horizontal. Right. You talked about it earlier. We had one anchor for a majority of that round for Mouse. The confusing thing is that Evil Geniuses, instead of just isolating the anchors, is choosing to confront them directly.
Right.
You know, it could have been throughout that entire round a simple take-in through VIP. Maybe just go through the wall, get into guitar, push from the bathroom, your typical basic stuff. Because you could do that and isolate the roamers and you don't have to worry about them anymore. Especially considering, for whatever reason, there's no pulse. But that's not what we're seeing Evil Geniuses do. They're playing into Mouse's game with that last round. And it actually has been working out for them, though. I mean, the first 2 rounds, they did the same thing. So
you also can't underscore how important that first pick was for the smoke of Neptunes to get rid of the Lion. That would have pinned them down for at least 8 seconds of the round, providing the Lion made it to use both of those. And then The smoke, that's a very big gamble to take. A smoke peeking, likely against an ACOG, maybe not at the shortest of ranges. We didn't see where it happened. It could have been an engagement that happened on the main stairs. It also could have been through the window by luggage. I'm not
10
sure,
seconds left.
but that was a huge sigh of relief for Mouse because Lion would have been a very influential operator
5 seconds
to
to
keep them in the site and be able to take control from below.
I want to say it was the window at the top of main lobby stairs. You know, that old spawn peak onto the the front door spawn. But you know, that's just speculation.
Right.
Now, final site, or the next site we're going to see here from Mouse, we haven't seen Hookah Billiards just yet, so they're going to go down to the double bar. And I think Hookah Billiards is probably one of the least played sites on this map. I don't know statistically.
It has been, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it's not exactly a favorite map or a favorite site for this map.
With great coordination, it crumples very quickly, typically, whereas the double bars downstairs don't. But when we see the double bars get used downstairs, the two most pivotal operators that are often employed are Castle and Mira. Castle is available, but Mouse won't go with them again, and there's no Mira available either. So I'm very interested to see the way that Mouse does this. They've got the alibi possibly watching into the foyer downstairs. Could possibly keep them all alive. Was that a C4 that just got used?
That was an impact. You saw the notifier from Vandal down below, trying to hold that push into Hookah, support his teammates on the roam upstairs just a little bit longer.
And I mean, he deterred Canadian for just a second, but I mean, that's really it. Also, though, that MX Storm is going to be able to look through that hole to see a push go in. First Lion charge is going to go, and Vertical is going to be on the move as he works his way down Cool Vibe stairs. And keep in mind that because Alibi is on the board, the defenders will be hidden when getting detected. So you don't know who it could possibly be, but Beastly was there holding an angle. Why would you use your Legion in such a way? BC will take out Neptunes, and that's 2 easy kills, but great roam from Vertical, and he'll down BC with Diffuser inside of Office.
Wow, that is huge that the Diffuser has been down far away from the site. It's going to force Evil Geniuses to rotate their push and start going for the retake onto the south lobby. Definitely going to take a lot of time, though. Hyper on challenge to the main stairs. Vandal from a crossfire will get Canadian. Mouse Sports keeping this back in their favor.
And Mouse Sports might not have a lot of utility available right now. Actually, next to none. They've just got a Vigil. All the Prismas are down from Alibi. Jaeger's gadgets are already down. So you've got tools still available for Evil Geniuses. They use their second EE1D. So the Lion will largely just be a fragging machine at this point. Depending on where they're standing with NVK's gadgetry usage, there's still some tools available. Speaking of that fragging machine, the Lion will pick up a kill. Vertical is down. They were able to find him as the Vigil was guarding the Diffuser. You can hear it gets picked up. Hyper in great position to greet somebody through that security doorway, waiting to see if anybody's going to walk on in. But you're going to have to monitor what Mouse is doing with their 2 last attackers. Oh no, Necrox just on his drone. That's Hyper able to finish him off, and Vandal grabs an NVK through the doorway. It's all up to Young. He'll toss a grenade in, waiting to try to draw out the Jaeger. A bout of irony as Jaeger almost dies to a grenade. Young in sight will have to go for the plant, but he'll take the frag instead. Vandal hears the IQ, and he looks the wrong way. What do they call it? A Kansas City shuffle. It's when you look left and they go right, and Vandal gets the final kill this round. Good performance over 2 rounds for him on defense, and he's managed to tie it all up.
Evil Geniuses looked just a little bit too disjointed in that round. They had a push coming from multiple angles. A lot on the south, a lot over by main lobby, but also coming from upstairs still, from the blue stairs specifically. And with a 3 versus 2 rather, you can spread yourself out a little bit because you have that man advantage, but it's ill-advised. You want to isolate and contain, and they just didn't commit themselves to that. They instead went for those individual frag plays. Now, Kitchen, the next defense from Mouse, and we did see a successful attack here from EG the last time this happened.
Twice even.
Twice even.
But because they've won on both Penthouse and the double bars, and they can't, this is their last defending site, are you going to go to Hookah or are you going to go to Kitchen? Because those are your only 2 options. So, obviously, as we mentioned, Hookah is a site that does not see quite the frequency that the other 3 do, even though some teams will favor that site. For the time being, it's going to go back down to Kitchen. Now, how do you play this differently if you're Mouse? First time you had too many roamers, you got pinched early. Second time, I mean, you had a pretty good comeback, but I mean, they were still able to take control of the above area and then keep you from rotating the site.
Okay, well, first of all, the roam upstairs is ineffectual because they don't have a Mira. If they had a Mira inside of a projector facing towards Penthouse, which is what makes that site so easy to defend typically, then yeah, they could really easily roam that top floor. It would probably help them out a ton. But they don't have that utility available to them. So they need to just give up on that potential. They need to, yes, roam, but I would say much different than they are doing right now. Clearly, Mouse is very much invested into the mentality of, okay, let's keep people, warm bodies, off the site. Let's keep attacking from the sides and the rear onto EG as they make their push. And that, yeah, it's been working. It's seen mixed results, as you could see from the 2-2 scoreline. But just pick your battles. And challenging onto Penthouse when you don't have a mirror window, it's hard, and it's not been working out.
So we'll see what changes they can make this time around. I do really like they brought this castle. I know it might seem like I'm focusing a little too much on castle, but this is a particular map where he shines more than many others.
Also talk about underrated operators in Pro League and just abroad.
He's an interesting operator because the casual viewer might not understand what Castle's job is. A lot of people will think, well, maybe it's to guard the site. Castle's job primarily is to funnel the attackers into a certain direction while making them either have to give up time or their utility to gain critical access. The first kill is going to go to Mouse Sports. That's Vandal, who is having a great day. And like I said, his performance seemed to dip as the qualifiers went on, especially with Ying banned, but on defense, he's making his mark. BC off the board, and of course, the only hard breacher as well available for Evil Geniuses.
Yeah, Young will refrag though, vertical, at least eliminated, so that's an important kill for EG. Now, they don't have a whole lot of control. You can see there, again, EG is very spread out. They don't seem to have a particular idea on how they want to deal with these roamers, but they are still putting a lot of emphasis on just that. Hyper somehow missing the shot onto Canadian. He will survive that bout and continue on to VIP. As the EE1D forces these defenders to stand still, and VK is attempting to get control over L. And he has done, for the most part, just that.
He'll find Vandal and take him down, but Hyper gets one before being taken out by NVK, so Evil Geniuses will at least trade off Necrox. So long, but one half of the Brick Brain duo is gone. That'll leave just the two FBI operators in both the Pulse and the Castle left in a 3v2. Canadian has suffered some wounds, not mortal wounds by any stretch of the imagination. He still have 1 minute left, but he's a shot or two away from death.
Yeah, and meanwhile, you have these last two Mouse Sports defenders are on full HP, possibly with some explosives, could exploit the fact that Canadian is so low. No C4, no impact, so that's not actually going to happen.
Attackers have located a bomb.
Come down to the last 35 seconds, though. This is going to be the final round of the half. And Mouse Sports are holding out against this onslaught pretty well so far. They have a lot of off-site players, but you're going to expect EG to, well, not expect that. And Neptunes will get the edge on NVK, but miss the kill inexplicably. Meanwhile, Young will push in through delivery and get the plant. Canadian covers with a kill onto Beastly, and that's just Neptunes now in a 1v3. Two lit attackers, but one he really should have gotten the kill on earlier. And as he crosses, he gets lit up himself. One bullet onto NVK to finish him off, but Young gets the final kill. Neptunes goes down, and the half goes to EG.
And the half goes to EG because of site rotation. Unfortunately for Mouse, they showed their prowess on both the Penthouse Theater site as well as the double bars, but Kitchen was their undoing because 3 rounds, but 3 very different strategies on how to defend Kitchen, none of them successful.
Twice. The only real repeat we saw from EG was that twice they just walked in through delivery and planted the diffuser, because what is Mouse doing? They're roaming. They're everywhere but the site.
It's very puzzling the way they've been playing that. You know, we saw Hyper playing in L upstairs, Hyper's home, as you want to call it, watching that little angle, and the Ella just showing that even though the high fire rate, that bullet hose of a Scorpion, the damage still kind of lacks where it needs to, and it looked like for the most part unable to control the horizontal recoil. It lit up a lot of what appears to be the hitbox of Buck, but it is actually just his armor pack. So I think, and if you're relatively new to Rainbow Six, the hitbox is not everything you can see. You can shoot a backpack. If you shoot Lion's backpack, it doesn't do any damage to him because it's not part of his body. Crazy.
Yeah, it used to be actually, if you go really far back in like the beginning of Siege, it used to be a lot of those extremities actually were hitboxes. You know, the helmets, they were a hitbox. The stuff like that. But these
located by
days,
attackers.
that's been fixed, that's been changed. Now the actual body is the only part of the hitbox.
Most egregiously was Blitz, his earmuffs. Blitz's earmuffs. Now, say what you will against our favorite German shielded operator, but Blitz's earmuffs used to stick out, they still kind of do, but behind the shield itself, and the earmuffs consistently were headshots. So if you got a Blitz coming at you, you just shoot him in the earmuff and, oh, well, it's a headshot. Doesn't quite work that way in principle. Might deafen him in real life, but
Probably,
certainly wouldn't.
It would hurt.
It would hurt a lot, but it would not be fatal. So we've switched sides. Evil Geniuses take 3 of Mouse's 5 rounds on defense, and now EG will have an opportunity. They'll go straight to Penthouse Theater, and here's what we were saying about Castle. You force attackers to either have to waste utility or time to try to get around a site. And wow, Canadian, what are you doing there? Hyper is the one who should be doing that. Canadian embracing his brick brainness and taking out good old Hyper, or as EG refers to him, Paul, as that is his name, able to take the first kill out. And that's the Buck. And the tyranny of a good Buck on this site cannot go understated. The grenade's gone after he was able to take out the castle barricade through the main door. And now Mouse is going to have to do a bit more work on destructibility, losing their chief soft destructor.
You know, I saw that kill feed and I was like, wait, that's the other way around, right? Hyper's the one going for the aggressive plays, but no, Canadian stepping up. And I think that's just, again, that's telling of the role swap that he's made. I mean, in the past, it also used to be BC who would play Buck, and he was so good at it, especially on Coastline. But now, Canadian's been doing great at that role.
I don't think I've ever seen Canadian on smoke before. At least not that at least not as of late. Vertical's gonna walk right into the main lobby. He's gonna take out Young. That was the castle sitting down behind the front desk over by security, and he's gonna find himself on a collision course with NVK, and that will be Vertical securing yet another kill. So the IQ able to just take all of this ground away from Evil Geniuses. We mentioned the roam game from Mouse. Hasn't really been that strong from EG right now either.
Yeah, and it's mostly down to Vertical and his great skill at picking him apart. But also worth noting, those drones from Mouse have been so efficient. Vertical has had full information on everything he's pushing so far, with marks and calls alike. So he's had some buttery smooth kills by virtue of support players. Now he's going to go for a nade deep into the A site, and he will down BC. Canadian positioning to pick up, but that's going to result in a double nade from Vertical. That's 4 for him in the round. Necrox, the final defender against Vertical, the ace from the IQ, and Mouse take the round in absolute domination.
Vertical, what a showing. Consistently one of the most unappreciated players in North America. Put some respect on that name. He has been so good over the last 2 seasons. Great to see that performance. What a grenade. Absolute incredible play. And it actually looked like what he'd done was it looked like he double bounced that frag grenade to take care of BC. Excellent play from him.
Yeah, the really puzzling thing for me, not to take away from Vert, but the really puzzling thing for me is, why is Canadian rotating onto his downed teammate when he knows there's going to be a follow-up nade? There's always a follow-up nade. Canadian? I mean, you know, it happens, though. It does happen. And props to Vert for a well-played round, and he really did deserve that ace. That was the type of ace. Yeah, okay, he had a lot of support from his teammates, but he made that happen, and good job to him. Also, good job to the rest of his team for droning out efficiently. Now, that's an equalization. We've got 3-3, and Mouse will take the first round of the half, so we still have a whole lot of match to play.
Yeah. So, I mean, this right now is being set up with that unpredictability factor once again of the system and the format that we're playing under. Evil Geniuses have looked very good on the rounds they've won, and the rounds that Mouse Sports have won, they've looked good on too. So I think both teams can look at this scoreline and say to themselves, we haven't won a round we didn't deserve. We haven't lost a round we deserve to win. Right now, they've been very conclusive. The real question is going to be, I would imagine at some point, somebody's going to steal a round away from the other. When is that going to happen?
I really like this Evil Eye here from BC. This is actually really cool, because remember we were talking about that control over the skylight and how it's ever present from the attackers onto the defenders? With that Evil Eye in position, in that place, you can actually, as a defender, tell yourself and your team whether or not you're capable of rotating through the hallway by just looking at the skylight. You have full information now, information that cannot be denied. So I really like that Evil Eye. You know, there's a couple other Valkyrie cams, like sometimes on the palm trees could be useful for that same exact effect, but still, it's a little bit of ingenuity.
And that's something that as Maestro gets on and on and on, people or we see him get played more and more and more, and the season goes on and on and on, rather, you're going to see more inventive places for those evil eyes to go, because it really depends on how a lot of teams use them. And I mean, we haven't really seen teams been using the evil eye with its laser in mind. They've mostly just been, you know, rotatable, bulletproof cameras.
That's really what it comes down to, is it's a bulletproof camera. You can put it in a position that, you know, even if it's something really common, like a easily accessible location where an Ash Charge or Zofia Lifeline can hit it quickly, it's still useful because it's hard for the attackers sometimes to get the utility to the place to destroy the camera.
Right.
Now, all that said, NVK lit up on his roam. Evil Geniuses have been roaming somewhat, but not nearly as heavy as Mouse. And I think a big part of the EG roam mentality is wasting time, peeling off. And it's not going to be able to happen here for Young, as Hyper just bucks his way through the wall from the bathroom and gets that easy kill.
Just a bit of mention about possible drone economy right there. It does look like they might have blown up a drone that was sitting by the castle barricade. Not crucial, but I mean, you don't want to be depriving all of your drones. Oh, NVK will get found out by Vandal. Great coordination. Gets droned. Knows he has to move because there's a lion charge coming, with Vandal there to greet him. Excellent coordination from Mouse to be able to pinch one of the roamers down. Also taking Young the castle out earlier on. And Mouse in very good position to strike this site with a lot of tools at their disposal. Of course, you didn't lose the buck of Hyper early. He situated that big window. You've still got the breaching charges on Vandal, should he need to possibly take any horizontal pressure onto Evil Geniuses, but I would suspect most of that site has probably been reinforced. So you now have a position where, as we can see through the floor, vertical, oh, he's been so good. Necrox just waiting to die at this position. We'll leave BC on site as the Smoke Canadian tries to get back.
Now we're looking at 35 seconds, and you would say that that's going to give the defense an edge, but look at the man. I mean, just a 2 versus 5. EG have not been able to fight back very much at all in this round. Now BC's going to do the first of that. He will get vertical, a very important kill. Canadian also gets Neptunes, and he's down the diffuser. He has 3 gas canisters, and he's going to be able to delay this push quite a lot as an individual. But Beastly gets BC, Vandal gets Canadian, and a lockup from Mouse. They had the information, and they were able to get the refrags.
What a play. This is really great to see the way that Mouse is flourishing with an adaptation to their strategy. We saw this from SK. And I know that if you didn't tune into the Paris Major qualifiers, I mean, it stands to reason a lot of those matches were not casted here on this channel. They were cast on a variety of community caster channels. So it's very easy for people to possibly not have actually seen all of that footage yet. They haven't gone back and watched the VODs. That's A-okay. That's why we keep referring to it. And also because I think it's important, because those are high-pressure matches against incredible teams, but not in a best-of-1 format, in a best-of-3 format. What we saw out of SK was, at least today, a lot of changes to the way that they play. The operators they use, where their pushes are coming from, the speed and hurry. Seeing the same thing from Mouse. Mouse are playing much more aggressive on both sides of that field, and they're right now able to take the advantage away from Evil Geniuses. In particular, Vandal, who turned in the worst performance, I believe, of his Paris Major qualifiers run in the finals against Obey. I could be wrong, but that is to the best of my knowledge, where he didn't do as good on the scoreboard or as well on the scoreboard as usual. He's having a great day today. Both he and Vertical are eating Evil Geniuses alive. Of course, Vertical buoyed by the fact that he had that ace to help boost his stats up. But both of them making the adaptations they need to. And for Mouse Sports, it's nice to see Vandal thriving on another role when we saw how efficient he was against Rogue as a Ying, and now being as effective as a Zofia against Evil Geniuses.
So, defense, Kitchen. We've seen 2 attempts from the Penthouse and 2 fails of the Penthouse defense from Evil Geniuses so far, and they've finally made a change. Now, I like this change. I'm glad they made it. The question is, Kitchen, of all sites. You know, we talked about this earlier, and I still hold that I think Kitchen is one of the more Mira window-focused sites out there. There's some options available to you if you don't have the Mira, but it's not as accessible. I like that vault there from BC. You'd actually think it's easier to get that Mira or that Evil Eye down, but it's kind of complicated.
Yes.
Because you can't just vault onto the wall, as far as I know.
I don't think so. I think he'd vault over the wall, which is why you saw he had to go onto the armrest of that couch.
It's so weird, you know, compared to a game where you could just jump up and you'd figure it'd be easier to get on it.
Physics in video games are always interesting, especially when you see like a doorway that's like,
Yeah.
you know, ankle height and you can't get over it. It's like when in real life you're like, yes, I can actually get over this. Please let me get over it.
It could be confusing, but
Yes.
here you go, Evil Geniuses, nice setup. And I think that Evil Eye has a similar mentality behind it, whereby you can give information on open area as well as many other things. And here you can even deny the plant because those walls are opened up to the open area location. That Evil Eye can actually deny the aggression in through the bar. Now I'm thinking it's double bar. I'm completely out of it right now. Thank you, Marcin.
It's the eyesight.
It's the
eyesight.
We're gonna keep blaming that. That's my excuse to go to forever.
One day you'll get glasses. One day we will invent a technology where you can see better, Michael. One day that will be available.
I'll get it eventually. Yeah.
Now, we talk about vertical control, and here we go. First EE1D, and this is great because that Maestro might be gone in just a second. One will be given away. Hyper, a great shot through the wall. Canadian does take out Vertical, but he pays for it. At least they get the hottest hand on Mouse down. Vertical, who has been probably the most impactful player in this game, will sit out the rest of this round. Now Beastly will go through some shots through the open window into the kitchen, but cannot connect anything. You can see that the Maestro of BC will peel off. That's a smart idea for Evil Geniuses to keep themselves in a position where they're fighting in a 4v4. Beastly takes some damage as well. Currently sits just under half HP. There's only 60 seconds left. We are nearing the point where Mouse is going to have to go. They're going to dump a bunch of utility into the site. You can hear the Castle of Young, the comical screams as he gets hit by an explosive. Hyper will toss down a grenade. It actually looks like he might have damaged himself. In the meantime, Hyper a second kill on NVK. NVK's having a bit of a rough day, but the Vigil is gone off the board. And Vandal, what a shot! Young taken out, playing by that pantry rack. And Hyper drops, but BC is there. It's still a 2v3. Neptune's running in, trying to outduel the ACOG. Necrox is there. EG is actually doing a great job holding off. Vandal, all the while, is taking damage from that Legion Mine. Necrox punishes him, and last one left is Beastly, who will sprint in. He downs BC. This is very winnable. Necrox has a tiny bit of health, but he's got some gas grenades available to him. He just uses the last one. Beastly will work his way in. He'll go for a pre-fire. Does he see the smoke? Who will win the fight? Peels around the doorway. Necrox looking with the SMG-11, and Necrox will win it, but they trade. It's a draw? How long has it been since we've seen one of these?
It's been, I want to say it's been upwards of around a year. I don't remember the last time I saw one. A draw of all things, and that, as you know, is going to add a point to both teams, which now puts Mouse on match point. So it's the last round now because of that. We just saw effectively 2 points added to the scoreboard, and or actually, yeah, I mean that's really interesting to see. We don't often see that.
Absolutely incredible that we see a draw, but that's a win for Mouse. As you pointed out, it puts them on match point. So that's rough. If I'm Evil Geniuses, that's a loss. That's a huge loss for you.
Yeah.
Mouse Sports being, you know, not necessarily gifted, because that was a, you know, both the bullets hit at the same time.
Yeah.
It's not really a gift, but this is do or die for Evil Geniuses, who are only have one victory on the season. It was the very first week. Mouse Sports as a team have been clawing their way up the standings. The sky is the limit for them. They've been playing a lot better. They came only 3 maps away from playing in Paris at the Major. I don't believe Mouse will be in DreamHack Valencia, so from my understanding, that means that they will not be able to secure that spot, and therefore will not be able to play at Paris. Their trip to Paris is done, but...
Well, they're certainly not flying to DreamHack Valencia right now.
So, with Mouse right now, Vertical and Vandal topping that scoreboard, a good effort from the rest of the team. Evil Geniuses are going to need some magic to happen here. Technically, they have not won a round on defense. And I say this because they did technically, I guess, I spoke too soon. Technically, they won the round on defense because it was a draw. They both won the round.
Both sides won, yeah.
Technically, they have not won an uncontested round on defense. And this goes back to our saying that defense doesn't really win coastline. So EG needed to run it up on attack in order to feel a lot better about this defensive hold. Now they are on match point.
And they kind of did. I mean, they got 3 rounds on attack, right? But it wasn't enough of an advantage to give them such an edge that they could just stomp all over the next half.
Yeah.
And we've seen some pretty incredible things from Mouse as well. A lot of it comes down to individual performance. Like Hyper with those shots in that last round, absolutely crazy.
So, What is about to happen over the next 2 minutes and 30 seconds? This has been a wild game between these teams. The ace from Vertical, the puzzling play of Canadian to get so aggressive on Hyper, that double grenade kill from Vert, now a draw.
Yeah, and we could see this.
And NVK will vanish from all of time and space, literally watching front row as he completely disappears, vaporized, and we'll wait to hear if there's going to be a call as to whether or not there is a rehost from the teams. That'll be an admin-style decision.
So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. But in the meantime,
we asked, what are we going to see? Well, thank you, NVK.
Yeah, he certainly showed us. But this actually could, and I want to keep you guys invested here because it's true that this could be the actual round. It's possible we won't have a rehost. We were a minute in, or just about a minute in. And I'm hearing now officially, yeah, the admin call is...
For the time being, there will be no rehost unless that call changes. We'll keep you updated, but that could be potentially a heartbreaker for Evil Geniuses. Not ideal to lose somebody. Your Jaeger is down, so I mean, hopefully he was able to get the ADSs down. In the meantime, keep you safe from possible grenade spam and projectile spam. Mouse Sports have been running 4 grenades quite reliably on attack with the IQ and Buck combo.
Yeah. Now, we're a minute in when NVK disconnected, and now we're at the final minute. And nothing has happened since then. Mouse has inched their way in ever so slightly towards double bar. They have a good amount of control, but they don't have enough to start pushing their way upstairs. Interesting that they're putting so much emphasis on this downstairs push. They do have the buck from Hyper, and that's going to be a big part of the emphasis, I'm sure. As the nades start coming out, they're focused on Projector. We also have the X factor of an EG Roamer all the way over on blue bar, so there could be a late flank at any point during this Mouse attack.
And you can see both those grenades will be used from the buck. Unable to get the skeleton key to much use underneath as one of the Lion gadgets from Beastly will be used in the process. But it's crunch time for Mouse, and even more important for Evil Geniuses, who, due to poor misfortune, have lost one of their members. Hyper working his way onto the Cool Vibe stairs will miss most of his shots, and here come Mouse. They'll circle in and look towards their push, but they still got a lot of ground to make up. One frag grenade will get primed from Vertical. NVK comes back into the fray, but it's a trade-off as Vandal eliminates Necrox and Canadian jumps in to take out Hyper. The time right now favors the defenders. Canadian will be holding it off. Young jumps in. Canadian with another. What a big round, but Vertical in a 1v1 will just simply lose out on time, and time alone. A great opportunity for the IQ to be able to put this one away, but we're going to have a match draw, and that'll be it. So, neither team will win, neither team will lose. Canadian, what an outstanding performance from him in those dying seconds to put his team onto a draw, and that will be that. One of the strangest matches that we have seen in the past couple months will come to a very intriguing conclusion. Both teams walking away with 1 point.
I'd accuse it of being the strangest outright. I mean, the draw by itself, and not the match draw, but the round draw by itself ups the ante quite a lot. But the play we were seeing from both teams was kind of interesting as well. Evil Geniuses really just seemed distracted today. I mean, the way they were playing was so, again, it was disjointed was the word I used earlier, and that really is the most appropriate, where they were all just doing their own thing. And sure, they have roles, they have jobs, and they're all executing their own business, but there was so little coordination in terms of shoulder-to-shoulder pushing on attack, and on defense it was pretty much the same thing. You said it yourself, Canadian stepping up in the last round there. I mean, sure, he did, but where's the rest of his squad?
He was stepping up consistently on any role they put him on, be it anchor or be it support or be it frag role on attack or defense. But it's not just Canadian. There will likely be, I'm assuming he's probably going to get nominated. Maybe not, but there will be 4 people nominated for MVP. You can take a look down below, follow us on Twitter, and then, of course, chime in on who you think was the most valuable player. I think he had the most MVPs last season, if I recall. I'm trying to remember. At some point, it might have been over the span of a month, but he did quite well, racked him up. As for Mouse, they could not make it work. They could not get it in the final seconds. Vertical trying his best, working in that site. A big 3K from Canadian. It was a triple kill, actually, to end things off, and then just have EG stay alive and outlast Mouse. They were able to salvage a point, and really a match that probably shouldn't necessarily have ended in a draw.
Yeah, and I think the main thing to reference here is the inability for Mouse to defend Kitchen. They just they couldn't hold kitchen 3 times and 3 losses on that site. If they had possibly gone to any other site,
Right.
you know, the double bar, or sorry, they did go to the double, but they didn't go to hookah. If they'd gone to hookah,
Yes.
maybe that's something they could have done differently. But that was ultimately why they couldn't get the win.
It really came down to site selection, right? You lost kitchen first and second time. Are you really so assured you're going to make it work a third time? Well,
Apparently.
I mean, if they were going to lose on hookah, it doesn't really matter if they lose on kitchen as well. So, a draw for our second matchup and a pretty wild and riveting conclusion. We've still got one more match for you today. Noble takes on Obey Alliance in just a few minutes. Buckle up, because match number 3 will be underway shortly.
Attacker's bomb diffuser has been dropped. Attackers dropped the diffuser. Attackers have located a bomb. Ten seconds left. 5 seconds to go. Bomb located.
Stylish on the outside, savage on the inside. Legion by Lenovo.
Welcome back, everybody, to our final matchup before we head. No, well, not we. Before some people head to Spain.
It's okay. It's all right, Parker. You're going to be fine.
Noble versus Obey Alliance will be our final matchup here on NA Playday number 4. I'm in Terrell. This is Kickstar,
Hello.
and we just saw a very strange match,
Yeah, it
to
was
say the least.
It was weird. It was a draw, Evil Geniuses versus
Yeah.
Mouse, and we technically had 2 draws, I guess.
It was a round draw, and then could you imagine if that had have actually been like the last round? Imagine it was 4-4, and then it was a draw into a draw. You got drawception.
It would have been really weird. Yeah.
That would have been it.
It was a weird match, but we do have another match in just a second. We've got Noble versus Obey. Let's take a look at Noble's roster.
Acid, Heavy, Crazy, Yeti, and Breezy. Now, there might have been a last-second roster change. We'll wait to see exactly what happens when all the players assemble in the lobby. But there appeared to be, from Noble, they added a 6th member to their team. Whether that member will be competing in today's matchup, we don't actually have the answer to yet. But ZZ, or ZZ if you're from Canada, ZZ has joined the roster. Whether or not he will be starting this evening, we will figure out in just a couple minutes. But if you know who ZZ is, he competed for 12 nights at along with Crazy at DreamHack Austin. Previously, he played on the roster of Beast Coast way back when they were reckless, and he could be coming in and making his splash. But of course, Noble enters today ranked 2nd, and then we have their opponents who just stormed their way through the lower bracket, destroyed Mouse Sports 3-0 in the best of 5 to claim the 3rd spot for North America at the Paris Major. They will be going to Paris next month, but they sit at the very bottom. They are 8th place as of today. Obey Alliance, Bosco, my man, Skies, Adam, and Benji.
Yeah, and Obey, like you said, they haven't had the best season so far.
Right.
We could say that without question.
Yes.
But those Paris Major qualifiers, I mean, geez, they really performed. And I think one thing you noted on was specifically how well they did as time progressed. They
Yes.
seemed to have the endurance of no other team.
They played a lot of matches until early hours into the morning,
Yeah.
and still were consistently performing as what would you'd expect from a top-tier team doing so at that level. It was incredibly admirable and honestly, very impressive. I gained a lot of respect for a roster that I already had a lot of respect for. By all means, don't think that I have a dislike for it. But it's been a situation where I gained a lot of respect for that team to go through and plow through that adversity and now get to a position. And in particular, I was really impressed with Adam's play. There were a number of games where Adam just absolutely took over. He dropped something like 17 frags, did well on the second match, and then I think broke double digits on the third match as well. It was an astonishingly good performance, and he was doing everything that his team needed him to do.
Yeah, I was actually talking about that with King earlier yesterday, I think, and he was saying about the same thing. You know, one of his old teammates and one of his old friends. I mean,
King George, of course.
King George, if you're not familiar, and he was saying that just about the same sort of deal. It's like, yeah, Adam's been playing absolutely crazy recently, but before we get into the actual match and we see how Adam does, let's look at the bans and see where we will and will not be playing.
And we can confirm now that ZZ will be replacing Acid as he has joined the lobby, so ZZ will be replacing one starting member of Noble, Acid, and it'll be interesting to see how he fits on that team because Acid has not been a slouch. He's been performing pretty well for the team, but if ZZ's a better fit, then that's a good upgrade to make.
So I actually got to talk to Noble about that, Crazy specifically, and
Right.
he was talking about how, yeah, he recognizes Acid's been playing really well, and Acid is on a sub role now. He has been rotated off. He's still part of the team technically, from my understanding, but they wanted ZZ because they wanted someone to support the team, to give that, that backbone, and, make a little bit more of the support type plays. And again, we don't normally see that. It's hard to really identify, but I think that from my understanding, he's been doing well in the squad,
Right.
and having that different role is helping out Noble. Now, here we go. Oregon, the map that we get to play.
So, I mean, there's something to be said for making roster changes, right? You know, Gurmy started, speaking of this particular matchup in particular, Gurmy Wormy, who's long been a core of this team, started the season as one of the members of Obey. They subbed him out for Benji. They've had Benji playing supporting roles. Tweets from all of his teammates have been singing Benji's praises on how much of an impact he's played on this team, and they've put in a great performance since picking him up. SK Gaming dropped Evil Waffle, who, for all signs, pointed to him being a great addition to the roster, to pick up Nyx, who has also done quite well. So just because somebody has a lot of value on your team doesn't mean you can't make those changes. And I said it ages ago, teams that go through Challenger League typically work one way. You know, you'll drop somebody, you'll finish top 2 in Challenger League, you'll qualify possibly for Pro League, drop somebody else to elevate yourself up. You know where loyalty gets you at that point? It doesn't get you into Pro League. And it certainly doesn't get you into the top 4, which I'm sure we're going to hopefully see both of these teams gunning for. And I guess for a team that's in second place, making them even better, it's pretty scary.
So, community vote time. Who do you think is going to win? Looks like it's going to be a close one. 36 to Noble, 64 to Obey. And I think that's due to Obey's most recent performance in those qualifiers.
It's got to be.
It's got to be, because if you take a look at the actual leaderboard in Pro League, this is the opposite of what you would expect it to be.
Right, and I mean, the only time that Noble hasn't walked away with a victory so far this season was against Cloud9. They're rivals formerly from Challenger League that both of them qualified, and they were able to draw. So, will Noble get its first loss of the season? Will Obey get their first win of the season? One of these things will happen unless we draw. We'll load in to Oregon, which is where we will be competing, to see. Now, Oregon has been a map that Obey have performed very, very well on. We saw them play it a number of times in the qualifiers over the last week, and they as a team have been really sharpening their knives and getting prepared to take on incredibly strong opposition. Noble will get the first ban, though. They'll go with an attacker, probably Hibana, I would imagine, maybe an IQ, but they'll take Thatcher out. Interestingly enough, that is Adam's starting role on attack. Almost every single round that we have seen Obey Alliance play on Oregon, Adam is running the Thatcher.
So I am seeing right now the Thatcher being counter, so allowing for a mute plate potentially, much more easy in that main lobby drop down. However, I expect as well a counter mute ban possibly right here from Obey, and yeah, there it is. There's the
smart,
mute ban.
very smart.
Yeah, once you see that Thatcher gone on Oregon, the mute needs to follow quickly, or you're giving a huge edge to the defenders.
Now, it also means with the mute ban coming up and a Ying being banned out from Obey, it means that we're going to have both hard breachers available for us, which is going to enable both a construction rush, a construction push, a meeting push, a front lobby push. It's not going to have as much of an impact necessarily on that second floor bomb site up in Kids Dorms, but it will certainly be a major difference maker for defending downstairs in Laundry. However, it does appear that for the time being, there might be a bit of an interesting start to this matchup, and that is Noble currently have tower and rear stage locked in.
What?
And that's where we're going to begin.
Yeah. This is a bit of an oddity. Could it be, Parker, that we see an even weirder map than the one, or match rather, well, I guess both, than the one just prior?
You didn't think it possible, but here we are. And also, important to note, with Maestro being banned, we not only have both hard breachers, but no Mira being banned as well. How peculiar to see the bans go down this way. Could it have possibly been counter bans directly impacting both of these teams rather than just overall utility-based bans to try and shape the way that the match will play? At a loss for words you are.
It's an odd sight to see as your primary, let alone as your third. I mean, okay, so if you're wondering, if you're watching right now, you're not familiar with Oregon, you're not familiar with CG Sports, Tower is considered by many to be the least defensible, if not second to least defensible site from this map. It's really not an easy hold, and the reason is the attackers can so easily isolate it and clamp down on it. So, as the defenders, you're forced to extend yourself over into West. But the problem there is that there's such an easy and accessible bottleneck for the attackers from that main lobby to cut off the meeting hall. It's really quite easy. And you can see that on that note, Noble is doing their best to reinforce that bottleneck with castle barricades and just normal reinforcements on the walls. And they're also going to be roaming pretty heavily downstairs. I don't know. I like I guess I recognize the setup from Noble. I appreciate their attempt at tower. I don't know how it's going to work for them. So we'll see as this round continues to play out. But Obey are going to be primarily clearing from the west side, as you can see. And that makes a lot of sense. If you've got west side control, then the tower's about the farthest thing from it. It's hard for the defenders to rotate back into it.
And look at this. Because there is no mute or no Thatcher available, this is going to be a very strong position for Yeti right here, as he can bandit trick that attic wall, and it'll push Obey into a position where they're probably going to have to either take from outside onto that small window that looks into attic, or possibly try to fight through meeting hall. Very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So it could have been a bit of an outplay there from in terms of the bans from Noble. So they could have, you think when you see the Thatcher that, oh, they're going to mute play downstairs.
Right.
But now we see the lack of the Thatcher is actually intended to assist their tower hold by allowing full control over attic. Now that Obey can't get attic, it's going to be a lot harder for them to take on this site.
I don't think they were prepared at all for this one single bit. And you can see, and a minute and a half has been expended. And if I'm Obey, I'm not really that confident in what we've done. You managed to take out the front castle. You've now also gotten that rear tower, or that rear stage and back tower Mira.
Now, Skies is going to open up a lot of angles using that hammer onto the castle barricades, and Heavy's use of the castles have been effectively nullified, but ZZ from above, the newest player just added to the roster, will get my man on a very long angle.
This is reuniting ZZ and Breezy as well from their time on Beast Coast, who are now known as Cloud9. So interesting to see if there's any developed synergy between these two players, as they are used to playing with one another. But this is very much Yeti's system. This is the way that Noble likes to play. And you can see that there's a reason why they've been playing this well. Yeti from above will take out Skies, even though the phone calls will ring, expecting a peek onto the Bandit. And Yeti will now manage to make his way to the back of the tower and the back of attic. However, deceivingly so, we have 20 seconds left, and Lion will get popped. Bosco in a position to leap right in. He's going to jump in. Adam and Bosco adding to the fray. 3 kills apiece. Crazy will rotate down the stairs. He'll get pressured, but 2 great kills as Crazy and Breezy will leave Benji last alive. The Dokkaebi will try to run up the stairs, but awaiting the push is Crazy, and Noble will take round number 1. If I'm Obey, oh boy, not a great start for Obey, but mind you, probably not expecting that to be the site. You can write it off as just simply Noble being able to beat them on the site selection. Now we'll see how well these two teams do on the more conventional sites of dorms or laundry room.
You know, Parker...
But...
What?
But they have a kitchen lined up for...
Oh, boy. So I wanted to actually note on this. Because of the operator ban phase, we're seeing the conventional be not that important any longer, it seems, in the way these matches play out. I mean, look at the way SK has been playing. They banned Thermite almost all of these the matches they've been playing, and when there's no Thermite, the other team almost always is disjointed and unsure of how they're going to attack. And they're planning on that. SK plans on that. And Noble banning out Thatcher, a beautiful sidestep there, because, again, it's going to... anyone thinks when a Thatcher's gone that Noble's expecting to use Mute to defend the basement. But no, Noble has organized around the lack of a Thatcher 2 different defensive strategies on the alt sites that you just don't normally see on Oregon. And they've completely sidestepped the expectations of Obey. The operator ban phase allowing for such a huge play. And all that said, and we've always known how deep the operator ban phase is. I have to give major props to Noble specifically for utilizing the depths of that new feature.
If I'm Obey, the moment I find out that this is the site that they're going to, my thought is, and I can hear Bosco say these words. He goes, "What are these guys doing?"
5 seconds remaining.
As now a second unconventional site, and you're absolutely right about the mute ban. We could possibly see Noble forego a defense downstairs in Laundry Supply Room if the rotation works in their favor. If they win here, might go up to kids' dorms and then just completely bypass having to go to that bottom site. Now, statistically, both tower as well as kitchen are not sites that defenders should particularly thrive on. They are almost objectively weaker sites.
Yeah.
Yet, if Noble can pull this out, it'll be interesting to see if there's any change in the way that people play Oregon because, I mean, heck, one possible great defense could make all the difference in seeing viability on different sites on this map.
Yeah, definitely got to give props to Obey for being this much of a pioneer team. It's worked out for them in the first round, but they're going to have to make it work out continuing forward as Obey starts moving their way into the indestructible wall, as we like to call it. It gives you a full cover, and there's not a lot that Noble's going to be able to do to deny the defuse plant once it eventually gets there. Maestro is banned, so that's not an option. Echo is on the board, and there is a Smoke as well, who can play the mirror window inside of Kitchen. So tools in hand for Noble, but they're going to have to use them just perfectly.
I like the way that Obey is setting this up, and I actually am a firm believer that this is going to be, right now, a quick push for Obey to be able to get in and get that diffuser down. Now, mind you, they're going to have to try to figure out exactly where the yokai drones are. That's going to be incumbent upon Skies to do that, but you can see Heavy repositioning that yokai and will use that lion to try and keep everybody down, but Yeti gets a kill on the Benji, and you can see as another smoke is going to go off as well. That planter trying so hard, but in vain right now, and once again, boop, as Bosco will be knocked into the plant animation. Adam, who has gone onto the Lion from his typical Thatcher role, will get breezy, but Yeti pushes up quite aggressively. He'll try to get the planter down. A big round from Yeti. That's 3 kills for him, but my man is there. Heavy, oh no, a team kill. That's a gift to Obey for the time being. At least for the moment, they still have the yokais potentially up. The man will put down a claymore to cut off a rotation into that small tower. Skies will need to work his way back towards the site, and the diffuser being down, you can see the yokai has it firmly trained, but it's my man taking out ZZ, and the yokai is going to be the biggest difference maker for the time being.
So, just the echo of Heavy. Nade coming to stop him from pushing. And an attempted plant from a man, although he comes off it to hold the angle. Skies in the hallway, wins the fight, and Heavy won't even get into the 1v1. Obey take that round, although it was a lot closer than you would expect it to be.
That team kill was a big factor in having that happen the way it did. I don't know if it was a possible reset. I don't know if it was just simply a bad cross from somebody, but that communication and those errors are unforgivable when rounds are this close. And that was a round that Noble could have possibly managed to win out after they got those first 2 picks. I liked the way, like I said, I liked the way that Obey was being able to push in through small tower. I liked what they had at their disposal. Though, here's one thing that I've seen about Obey that I really need to focus on. And I know that when we were doing the qualifiers, people were a bit critical. The way that Obey plays Skies' IQ, they do not really use him for primary gadget detection. They keep him on flank watch, holding the rear. Now, I understand why you would put somebody like Skies, who is a great shot, and can waltz right in and kill a bunch of people, as we saw him do the last time on Oregon in the qualifiers. But why do you have your IQ doing that? You need that IQ to be there, to pinpoint the way that a defense has their sights set up. You need it to find those yokai drones, because Obey's push almost completely fell apart because those 2 yokai drones were not being found. So I'm not certain why exactly Obey does this. I understand, like I said, why Skies is on flank watch. That's totally okay. But the operator as an IQ, losing out on those potential frags, and the gadget, I don't know.
I guess I would agree with you. There's some amount of information IQ can gather from a pretty large distance, but still, you're right. It's not the perfect role for that position. Regardless of it, Skies fills it pretty well, and he does get a lot of kills from the role that his team has placed him on. However, there's some other options available that could possibly give Obey an even greater edge. Now, regardless of that, they did get the round, and you have to give them credit for that. The way that they attacked from the tower and the bathroom gave them a good crossfire onto the defenders, allowing for a solid hold. And as you saw, when Noble went for the retake to try and deny the defuse plant, they were mostly successful, but it was at a steep cost in terms of warm bodies.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, there's a couple things for Noble that you can pinpoint down there. I like the way that Obey approached it. I like the way that Noble was able to hold it off, too. It was a great effort from both of the teams, and I think the team kill was ultimately that real.
Probably.
That was a huge factor in it. Now, Obey have isolated a single member of the defense playing at the top of Armory Stairs. It's ZZ. He will get droned. He's been marked previously. Benji as the Dokkaebi lying prone by the main door, looking towards the top of Armory Stairs, possibly going for the kill, but ZZ has gone all the way around to the top of White Stairs, which is going to allow Obey to get all of that ground back. But Noble is invested quite heavily downstairs. This is not out of the ordinary for dorms. You've got both Jaeger as well as Bandit inside a kitchen or thereabouts that will need to be discovered, especially if that Bandit is running a C4 of Yeti, because there's a Valkyrie on the board, and that information can be crucial in stopping the plant from going down in the final seconds.
Yeah, you could see that the entirety of the Obey strategy is master take, and they do have flank hold for the main lobby, so if Heavy tries to come from below for the C4, he might get torn asunder. However, there's always a way to wiggle your way into Classroom, and if he's able to do that, that C4 is still going to be viable to deny the plant on Generator. Now, Skies is also, like you said, he's on that odd angle. He's playing over by tower to try and cut off rotation from the defenders. But what I'm seeing from Obey right now is honestly just a lot of hovering. They have inched their way into the building, and they've got what they need to start a push onto Generator, but they don't actually seem committed to that push into Generator. And I think they're maybe just hovering, looking for kills, and they're not able to get them because Noble's playing smart and safe.
Now Skies will work his way up to the top of the tower. He'll shoot out the window that looks into Generator. And finally will pull out his gadget, but is in a position where he can't take out that Valkyrie camera without having to drop, so he will repel at some point. I like the way that you said that they were hovering, or loitering, because Noble is looking like they are going to be well-placed to stop the rush that is going to happen as, there you go. Logic bombs go off. Sophia concussive bolts go off. 1C4 will not get anything. Breezy is first kill. Benji working his magic. Heavy is also down, so it's a 5v3, but Yeti and Crazy will dive right in. Yeti with a double. He's so good in this matchup. ZZ will end up getting the kill, and last alive is Skies. He'll win. He'll take ZZ down, but there's still 3 to go. Same amount of seconds. And Yeti will finish him off. A big 3K from Yeti and Skies. Once again, just a little too far off for his team to do much with. Could have been a couple seconds more on the pace. Holding that flank watch a little too long. The rest of his team, they got consumed by Noble's defense. Right into the Thresher they went, and Noble will retake the lead.
So the reason, in case you're wondering, the justification of IQ being on the flank watch and being the off role is that he can rotate back to the fight quickly. He's a 3-speed. He can, get back into the engagement. It was a little bit late there, but any other operator would have been just in no position to get back if they had started moving when Skies had started moving.
Right.
Now, no, I say any other operator's speed. And that's kind of the point I'm getting at, is you can do that with other ops like Ash, for example, who I would say is more justified in that role, or even I might even, Ash. I would do it on Ash. If I'm gonna have an operator who's gonna be sitting off, not doing much other than just waiting for a potential flank, it's gonna be Ash, because she can explosively, quite literally and figuratively, use her utility to whatever means you're trying to have that utility be useful, and then go on the flank watch, and then she's still influencing the round. Whereas an IQ far afield, I mean, not doing much.
The problem with bringing in Ashe that we've seen many teams address is the fact that IQ at least has a great gadget. The problem is that IQ's gadget is really not being used. We saw this in their matchup against SK. We saw this in their matchup against Obey. The gadget that IQ has is incredibly powerful for not just figuring out where roamers might be, but then also on marking the site. Obey is not getting the same mileage out of the IQ gadget. And I think that hurts them because, in an essence, you've now seen 2 pushes where Obey looks like they're going in a little blind as to where goo mines could be, as to where the yokais are. What can solve that? Well, a Thatcher can. You don't have a Thatcher. All right. A Twitch can solve that. You're not running a Twitch. All right. An IQ can solve that, but you're not using her that way.
Yeah, it's better to just fill a small cup rather than grab a larger cup that you're not going to be able to fill up all the way. And it's kind of just lost utility.
And it's a bit of a shame, really, because Skies is Skies probably has some of the best aim in North America. He's a great reflex player. He's able to get kills when he needs to. And yeah, I think that the biggest problem that he has is that he's being passive, and the impact, the frags that he's gotten so far, not exactly high impact.
So, focus on the tower here for both teams. Noble trying to hold on to it. Yeti very passive in his angle, using the Gersmot against his sister of the Zofia. So lots of utility lost here as they're going to recover from those Gersmots a lot quicker. Heavy setting up the shot, but cannot land it just yet. He's going to do, I think, a little bit of damage, but at the MP7 at that distance, oh so very little. Yeti gets aggressive on the angle. He's waiting for his opportunity, but from behind, he will be forced off the window. You can see it's just a really bad pinch here for the Ella as she gets pressured from both angles.
Skies below. Benji will finally manage to dispatch the Ella, and they've gotten control of tower, but it took them 90 seconds. You can see that my man had sustained some damage as he was on rappel, as has Benji, almost completely dead, just hanging on by the skin of his teeth. Skies underneath was at the back tower, so this is possession of that back tower, and we are on the 4th site in 4 rounds. Hasn't really been noted yet, but for those of you that can't see, we're looking at defending downstairs in the laundry supply room. So Noble is running the gamut right now in terms of every single site. The mirror will get popped inside of that pantry wall and give the ability for the defenders to see into kitchen, and it's going to be crazy moving to the pantry to possibly play into the meeting hall. A reset for Benji will cap things off as we hit our final minute.
There hasn't been a lot to happen other than tower control. Breezy's going to try and contest Harry Potter, but it's an odd angle, that's for sure. He's going to be happy he didn't die trying to challenge it. It's difficult not to from that cubby in the hallway. Smoke is a good candidate to hold on to that, though, as we come down to the last 30 seconds. This is a deceptively slow round. We've seen that a lot, actually, in this matchup, and it's going to repeat yet again.
And the only thing that happened so far is the tower push. But meeting hall has been secured by Obey, looking to try to get Skies into blue. My man expecting a flank. He'll pull out his launcher. The Jaeger will come in. Skies nades himself. What are you doing, Skies? My man manages to take out Crazy. So an advantage still in favor of Obey despite their team kill. The could be around the corner. A misplay from the smoke. Breezy missing it. ZZ a big double, making his presence known, but time will run out. ZZ, the star of the show in that round and the newest member to Noble, putting in the work he needs to give his team an even bigger lead. Obey trailing 3-1.
What is going on? That last round was just... okay, so we had a hyper delayed push. It took about a minute or 2 minutes 30 for the attack to actually start going towards the site.
Yes.
They put too much emphasis on that tower. It took way too long to get Yeti out of the top of tower. And then from there, as soon as they did get the control they needed, they just lingered. And we've seen that from Obey time and time again. A lot of really slow rounds. And it's not working out for them. This is not the typical Obey. This is something different from what we're used to seeing from them as well. I don't remember them being this timid. Now, it will probably help them on defense when they get to it, but if they end the first half in a 4-1, then it's going to be hard for Obey to recover.
Yeah, and I mean, you're seeing the defenders win with lots of utility available and lots of opportunity available for the attackers to take hold of these sites. Keep in mind, usually when we see Oregon either leaning heavily towards the defense or heavily towards the attack, it's because the operator bans have made it so. I look at the current bans of Thatcher Ying, Mutant Maestro, and I mean, I gotta say, like, I understand that it might favor the defenders here, but I think it could potentially be a wash, especially with a team like Obey Alliance, who like to load up on fragging operators and not always necessarily bring smokes, or not always necessarily bring an abundance of frag grenades.
Barricade up!
Yeah, and Obey, I mean, they've not been using the utility that they do have in hand all that adeptly so far. So even what they do bring hasn't been that useful. And I think that's a big part of the story. You know, if we had had Obey in that previous round, bait out some of the gas canisters from smoke a little bit earlier in the round,
right,
and, you know, put themselves in a less danger close situation where, yeah, if we don't push now, we're screwed, then they wouldn't have had to deal with a lot of the counter utility from the defenders. You know, you gotta play the angles, you gotta expect what is oh so predictable which is, yeah, a smoke being played to delay your push in the last 30 seconds. And you have to play around that. But it's just not been happening so far. Now, Noble, similar to what we've been seeing, in the last time they defended tower, are going to have Bandit on that attic, and that is going to allow them so much control. This attic control has actually allowed them to pressure Meeting Hall quite a lot in the later parts of the round, and because, again, there's no Thatcher, there's no drone hole for the Twitch drone to potentially go through. There is no Twitch in this round, but you know what I'm talking about. There is no way for the Bandit batteries to be dealt with until Meeting Hall control is already established for the attackers.
So lots of layers for Obey to cut through here, and a multifaceted defense for Noble. I am actually a little surprised today with how little Mira has been banned, only in one of the 3 matches, how little Twitch we've seen. It's been a bit surprising because usually their pick rates tend to work with one another. Of course, Twitch is only really picked, I think last season she was around 40 some odd %, sitting somewhere in the 6th to 8th range in terms of most picked attack operator. But when there's a Mira off the board, her pick rate plummets. Still, it's been interesting to note how little she's been used, especially also knowing that there's a Bandit too with Bandit batteries. Lots of gadgetry for a Twitch to be able to get.
There's a Bandit, there's a Mira, and Thatcher's banned. This is where you pick Twitch.
I mean, they've got the IQ, but as was noted, the IQ is not really using her gadget in the way that would be a possible substitute for them.
Twitch is a great flank watching option.
Also true.
Considering you use her utility and it's mobile. So
and you can stay on flank watch while also being on the receiving end of the push. And speaking of, once again, a very slow starter here. What has Obey really accomplished? Well, they're struggling to get control of Attic. At the moment, Sky's priming a frag grenade, looking to try to take care of that Attic wall. We'll get it. So the frag grenades will be used to open up the Attic wall. But is it too little, too late? Obey will have to drone in and try to figure out where they need to come from because all of Noble have fallen off. They've now started to coalesce around the B site and holding the stairs and angles. Watching a possible rotate through the basement sits the Lion. So you've got Adam on flank watch right now, which is a good place for the Lion to be because once again, his gadget can work all over the map. And here it goes. Speaking of the gadget, Skies is just going to jump right in. Crazy is there. He'll pick up his second, but my man will also jump in. It's a 5v2. Way off site is Heavy. He'll need to get back as quickly as he can. He'll run up. You can see one down. That's Breezy. Skies will pick up his 3rd kill, and Heavy will need to get one, but Breezy smokes. Skies will pick up a big 4K. And those are high impact, valuable frags as Skies jumps right in, locks off the site. And this is how I wish Obey was using Skies more because this is what he's capable of when he's not flank watching.
Yeah, stick him in the fray. Just throw him just throw him in the breach and he will see results. And that's exactly what we just witnessed. You know, it was a situation where Noble had that round. It was done. It was over. But yet again, similar to some rounds in the past, they weren't paying enough attention to that window right next to the attic. And Skies was allowed to simply vault through it and get that 4K like you talked about. You need to be able to clamp down on that stuff. It's interesting too because we had 3 defenders in a position where they could potentially hold that push from the IQ, but none of them were. None of them expected it. And that to me is confusing as all heck. Now, Laundry Room Supply Room will be the first site defended by Obey. So they're going for a much, much more typical defensive strategy or defensive setup at least as compared to what we saw from Noble.
Well, what is Obey going to be able to do on defense? Without an Echo ban, we've seen Benji play the Echo on quite a number of occasions. In fact, most of the time, that's where we see Benji excelling. And part of Benji's impact on this team, for those that are unaware, has been on a purely support-oriented position. Now, not only is he giving good drone calls, not only is he helping pinpoint where things are, but on defense, focusing on the Echo play to deny the plant, he's also using those 2 Yokai drones in a mobile fashion in order to give that information to his team. He received praise after the Paris qualifiers from his team saying that it wouldn't be possible for them to be able to get as many frags as they did without Benji being there to give them that information. And that's something that often goes unstated, and in time, I think people are going to start to see a greater amount of value in what you can bring to the table simply from droning and being there with the rest of your team. So the Echo will be somebody to keep an eye on as Obey starts their defense downstairs in Laundry and Supply Room.
Now, Yeti unsure if he can open up this window. There are no defenders on the other side, but of course he does not know that, so he will wait for the call from his teammates and go for eventually opening up the window. And that will give tower control now to a Noble. There's no contention here from Obey. They have completely forfeited tower, which, but they will at least be prompted to the push from Noble. So once you know it's coming from tower, you can adjust your defense accordingly. And Obey will obviously be privy to that, and they will focus on it now, holding on to as much as they can that tower side of the building, the north side. E1D gonna deny the push from Adam, but he's not actually looking to come out of Harry Potter right now, just waiting nice and snug. He'll fall back eventually, all the way to the site. This defense from Obey right now is super passive. We haven't seen them contend any of the control that Noble has established, and they are falling, in fact, all the way back to the site, stacking up extremely heavily. You can see 4 players in close proximity to this construction push.
And assembling themselves, seeing that there's a soft wall as well in blue. They'll be able to take control of it, but what happens when the wall is soft? Well, you can shoot through it. A lot of times that will happen with exothermic charges. Sometimes you might see a team leave a wall soft, so they can take out that exothermic charge with 1 bullet. Instead, they look like they only shot 1 or 2 of the X-Kairos. Still, it was just a window in that they were trying to look through. They only shot 1, so there you go. Perfectly opened up and allowing the Capitao a long angle to possibly see somebody playing over by the back of supply.
Now, ZZ, first kill of the round. Adam eliminated. And first kill of the round, 2 minutes in, onto a defender. You really do need that since the momentum hasn't really been set all that well from the attackers. However, it's been much more efficient and much more aggressive than what we were seeing from Obey in the previous half. We also have a downed man in the site. He will finally be finished off by Heavy. Benji responds onto Heavy, however, so no more Lion. Yeti on the main stairs, going to be trying to flank this push, and Crazy, wow, losing that fight to Bosco. What a shot from the smoke. I don't know, falling apart at the seams as they attempt this push. ZZ sees Bosco just outside of box. Knows there's 2 players in that position, goes for the spray and misses. He will die. 2 Skies pushing around aggressively. A double kill for Skies, denying the plant, and Bosco to back him up. Obey will take the round in a very, very close fight.
Bosco and Skies there working together to maintain that any push that was happening would be shut down no matter what the clock said. Noble not doing their best job of time management. You could see that as the push was happening, Yeti was positioned upstairs, still trying to watch for a possible rotate. It also looked like the Twitch player also upstairs watching the open hatch, but there was no coverage. You could see that with how, I guess, how careful Obey were playing in and around the bomb site, by the back of supply and by the closet, they weren't really trying to peek any avenues and played really, really safe. And by playing safe, they lasted till the end of the round, able to get the kills. Noble losing the first round on attack.
Right off the bat, you're right. Noble were really slow in that round. But also, they were a little bit faster than Obey. And I think in this match, from both teams, we've been seeing a lot of slow attacks. And Noble still has time to show us a little bit more aggression, to show us a little bit more conviction on their actual clear, because that's what's seemingly lacking. We had a situation where Obey wasn't fighting at all to hold on to tower, and it still took a solid 2 minutes before the actual site push started. And then even then, the eventual push for the defuse plant was at 30 seconds. So Noble, more efficient than Obey, but still not nearly efficient enough. You've got to manage that time better. As Obey goes up to the top floor, we will see a continuation of the conventional from their defense. None of that tower kitchen nonsense. But I don't know. I think while you can go to these sites and they do work, it does show a little bit more initiative, and again, ingenuity is a good word to use to describe it, from Noble, that they went the extra mile to change things, to mix it up, to give themselves an edge. And of course, the operator ban phase being so directly, correlated with that.
You see the castle barricade being used to try to hold off anybody from getting easy access to the bottom of white stairs. As the site is upstairs in dorms, Yeti will have to expend one of his grenades in order to open that vantage point up. Crazy on the Twitch, so there we go. We speculated as to why a Twitch wouldn't be available. Well, here we are in a position now where a Twitch drone can be particularly vital. ZZ will go for the drone to try and draw the attention out, but Crazy No will just miss his shot ever so slightly, and Adam will now push back to get a bigger angle onto that Twitch drone when it tries to drive right in. But he'll lose it. Adam not quick enough on the trigger. He'll have to fall off of that mirror that was being played in Kitchen, giving him a line of sight all the way into the rest of that staff area. So interestingly enough, or the dining hall or mess hall as you want to call it.
Cafeteria.
Cafeteria, all the different calls for it. We'll mean
Eat place.
Adam, eat place. It is indeed in the eat food place, the eat place, and now Adam will move back. And it's also allowed Yeti to be able to get this really inventive angle, which we've seen a couple times as he lays prone through the open mirror window. And I like what Heavy is doing. We're focusing really on the way that Noble is orchestrating this push, and Heavy is looking through the tiny holes that have been opened up by the caliber, or the bullets rather, of the glass to make sure that nobody can possibly rotate through that big window.
Yeti looking for the nade onto the player who's anchoring in B. He will miss. Not any damage done to Bosco. And Obey going to be happy about that. Noble, yet again, very slow on the uptake. But Yeti will at least disable the top of White Stairs as a anchor position. So good job there from the Buck. There are a lot of roamers, though, in close proximity. At any moment, he could be completely exposed. No one there to support him, and just exactly that's going to happen. Adam will get the frag as he inches his way into Kitchen from the meeting hall. Obey having a successful roam, that's for certain. Last 43 seconds, and we're seeing more of the same slow.
And the thing with Adam was it looked like he absorbed one shot of that skeleton key, but not enough, as the skeleton key obviously is not usually used as a killing machine,
Right.
but more as a tool, a can opener of sorts to open up situations where need be. You can tell that Noble is feeling the pressure, and the time running out means that they will have to hurry quite a bit. Breezy will get the kill on the Bosco. That was the smoke being felled, but Adam, still on the roam, will take out his second, find another target. The Glaz of Heavy will get down, but plant for ZZ going off. Sky's managing to finish off Heavy. Crazy on White Stairs in a great position. Diffuser goes down. Last man standing is Crazy. He'll get the low impact frag onto Benji, and Adam is there. Starts things, finish things. 3 kills for Adam. Obey locking this down and looking even better on defense than they did on attack. Mind you, they did lose attack to Noble, but still, they'll tie 2 together. 3, technically, if you go all the way back to when they were on attack. Obey's in good position to be able to finish this one out.
Yeah, and this is just as we predicted earlier when Noble were the ones defending. Obey's playstyle doesn't really work on attack, or at least in this match. Their playstyle that they've been showing us in this match doesn't really work on attack, where you're just really slow and you're not able to take that initiative. But on defense, it can actually give you a lot of advantage if the other team is playing the same way. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Noble showing us, I guess, signs of what we saw from Obey on the previous half. And it's almost like we're watching the same team, but switched up now. It's kind of interesting. But Kitchen Dining Hall, the site of choice for Obey as they go to their third. They are forced to either here or tower, given that they have had such great success on defense.
Probably not as comfortable, I would imagine, with the odd sites as we saw Noble be. I mean, mind you, the second tower defense did go in favor of Obey because the way to attack tower is, and I've said this many times, typically the way to attack tower is one of 2 things will happen. Either you'll push really, really early, or you'll push right as the round is about to end. That's the way that Obey did it. You know, we said they almost languished. It's been about 2.5 minutes organizing themselves, making sure that they were lined up for the push, and then just literally springing into action. So there was a call to arms from the IGL of Obey, and Noble crumpled. Now, as for a Kitchen push, we've said it time and time again, your push is likely going to involve you taking control of dorms from above, because that entire floor/ceiling is destructible, making sure that the bodies that are down in Kitchen, that's the B site, are as uncomfortable as humanly possible, and very likely getting a plant off in A by that destructible wall, as you noted. The good counters, other than a C4 and a smoke, will be your Echo drone or a Maestro camera. If you look, Obey has 3 of those 4. They're only lacking the Maestro, and that's, of course, because Maestro is banned out. So, Obey has a lot of opportunity at this moment to try to stop a plant, depending on how it goes, but Noble have got the smokes and the grenades, as well as a Lion available at their disposal. So, lots of utility on both sides of the field.
Good kit either way. Noble going to go for the typical junk tower take. Now, this is usually the attack of choice for anyone pushing onto Kitchen. The reason being, it's so easy for the attackers to isolate junk tower. Once they have junk tower, it becomes a good beachhead for them to start their assault. They also can get control over the showers and lockers. Now, there is Bosco, I believe, in a position to try and stop that. Yeti will catch him if he attempts to rotate on this rappel, and the nade will be the one to try and push him out. But the Jaeger ADS will catch the nade, so Noble fixated on getting in this control. The reason you want to get control over lockers / showers is, of course, because it applies or crossfire to either team that has it. So if the attackers have it, they can crossfire and deny the counter push, and if the defenders have it, they can deny the plant outright in the first place. So it's a very important position, and one that Bosco is trying to hold on to as best as he can.
An immediate difference you can see. Breezy is on the front lines, using his grenades to possibly take out barbed wire or even utility. He's got his gadget out to know and assist his team on where they're going to go. They're getting a plant off. The one Lion gadget will be used. The Glaz holding a covering angle. The C4 will connect. The Thermite is down, and immediately Breezy will get tagged in. Skies, though, right now, Army crawling his way across. The Bandit, at the moment, could potentially strike here. He'll pop right up. A big double kill from Skies. He bursts into action, and it's going to leave just Crazy and Yeti. Skies going for a third. He'll get it down, but can't clean up. He sees one. Crazy will dispatch Adam. Skies looking to put together another, but no, Crazy will outduel him, and that means Yeti is in a position to possibly be picked up as well. As I say that, the man will jump out, get the kill. The last Lion gadget will go from Crazy, but you gotta think he's swinging in the wind, and that's exactly what happens, or twisting in the wind, rather. Bosco will be Obey's closer here with the SMG-11. And match point for Obey, who've fired up the engines after losing the first round. They've really come alive here.
And
Four in a row.
Skies in that round, individually pushing through the cafeteria all the way to the front line and using the attacker's smoke to his advantage. A very impressive play from him. And I think, you know, as much as we were critiquing the operator selection earlier of Obey, putting Skies onto IQ and sticking him on flank watch, I do think that individually he has been performing out of his mind in this match. In a lot of his positioning, his gunplay, it's really been, well, on point. There's no other way to put it. And kind of a breath of fresh air, considering, again, we've talked about this a couple times, you know, on him being on this roster, he seems to really just fit.
Both Adam and Skies have been tremendous in terms of what they can bring to the table in terms of raw skill. Benji as well, but like I said, more of a communication style thing. I have no doubts that Benji could probably frag well if they put him on that role. I mean, even right now, he's technically seated in second on that scoreboard. Yeah, I mean, he's competing with the rest of them, but there is quite a bit of a difference between both where Benji sits and Skies, and it was actually Skies who gave praise to Benji on Twitter, saying that at least half of his kills, if I recall correctly, it might have been a third of his kills, were not possible without Benji's assistance. So big ups to the newest member of Obey, and Noble could possibly face their first defeat. Now, Space Station Gaming, who were undefeated, they got theirs today. What about Noble? Are they up next? Well, Obey Alliance, searching for their first win, are within striking distance. Just under 3 minutes to go on match point. Could possibly see the blue and black colors of Obey Alliance being able to finally get their first victory in their fourth week.
And you know, Noble, having made that very slight roster change of, well, I say slight, that pretty monstrously huge roster change of Acid onto ZZ, even though, you know, they've been saying he's been doing well and he fits the role that they need a little bit better, you know, being that support player, it's still an abrupt change to make in the middle of your season, and it will put you in a predicament where you have to kind of relearn your roles. And it's probably a big reason as to why they're struggling so much in this match. However, Obey, on the other hand, really woke up mostly when they went on to the second half. I think the big story here is defense-sided, and Obey especially favoring the defense. Now, Noble trying to isolate these roamers, and for the most part, they've been successful in that endeavor. They have now a good amount of control on the west side, but Obey still has power, and as much as they're going to try and get that control in their favor, Noble are going to have to take a lot of time to do just that. There's also Meeting Hall still to contend with.
So look at Noble. A bit of a faster pace. They've got the Glaz right now looking like he's on that flank watch. In that position where he can look through the doorway, possibly try to catch anybody that bothers to push up through tower. One grenade will get tossed out to just open up a bit of that wall towards the mirror window, and Heavy will get one of the smoke grenades off as a gas canister will answer. ZZ going for a plant just right in the open, but there is, of course, Benji's Yokai drone, and it should have no problem knocking ZZ out of it, and of course, he will take some damage from the smoke grenade. Now, it also looks like Breezy is missing out on the possible Yokai. I don't think he hit it, which is strange because it was right in front of him. Airmail from a man, and that's ZZ down.
Second C4 will miss, though. Obey still holding onto this counter utility. Noble goes for another plant. Heavy able to cover with a kill onto Bosco. Breezy sticking it, and it looks like he will be successful in that attempt. Crazy also gets Adam holding from above. Crazy gets a second one onto my man. He's going to have a great job in that main lobby. Skies, though, doing Skies things and getting a kill onto Breezy, fighting back. As Benji pushes up to the main lobby, he will down a player whether he knows it or not. Yeti will eventually shut him down, though, and Skies trying to stick it will not have enough time. Yeti will shut him down, and Noble take the round against my expectation.
It did seem like there was a bit of uncertainty as to whether Noble would walk away with the victory in that round or not. Doesn't really matter. We are on the very final round. So for Obey, at least they won't be walking away with a loss. They will guarantee a point on the board. They were able to do that last round or 2 rounds ago when they picked up their 5th win. Noble, of course, will fight for that draw. That's the best outcome that Noble can have. And hey, like I said, could Obey find their first win? Could Noble find their first loss? The only thing that can possibly stop that is a draw, and here we are. Dorms is going to be the scene of the crime as round 10 about to get underway. Reveal phase, a good lineup at the moment for Noble to bring what they need to. A Lion and a Glaz are always usually a good combo on Dorms. Skies flexing off onto the Ella. No Echo will be available this time around, so they'll likely be playing a pretty typical Dorms defense. You'll have the mirror window inside of Kids, you'll likely have the smoke play on White, and then you'll hope that your roam game can buy you enough time when that wave crashes against your site, unless you kill them before they get there.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused by attackers.
So, 3 minutes, 40 seconds left in this match, no matter the result. Skies on 13 kills, Yeti on 10. Some standout performers, that's for sure, from both teams. And Obey defending the top floor. They will also extend themselves downstairs, as is typical, bringing that Mira, who has been left unbanned in this match. An interesting change of pace as compared to the usual. And this is all the end of the match, no matter what. I like the holes that are being set up by Obey. Some pretty standard stuff, but could potentially give them a slight edge. I don't remember the last time I saw an attacker actually fall victim to one of those holes that's opened up from the top floor, though. It's very uncommon these days because usually people are aware of it. I mean, this one right here is really powerful, the one that's being highlighted underneath the west window, because you can hold the white stairs from it.
Yes.
And that's probably the most influential of all of them.
But it also goes the other way. We've seen
Right.
a lot of defenders try to peek that with somebody waiting at the bottom of white stairs, especially if you have the numbers to stick somebody there and not worry about their possible influence on the actual overall site push.
Right, and then we say that about everything really in Siege. It's not about the defenders setting up layers and layers for the attackers to pick through. It's about playing those angles from both sides and playing them efficiently, and they do always go both ways.
The real question for me is, how is Noble going to be able to maneuver its chess pieces? So they're likely going to try to take that generator closet wall and use that with some
A bomb has been located.
likely push along with the buck underneath, and then you'll have the Hibana work her way in there. Probably have the glass situated on the big window, as is pretty standard. The Lion will likely also cover generator, but it actually doesn't look like there's anybody right now from Noble that's going to be facing that big window, and certainly nobody over by small tower. They're all currently assembled by the big tower in the rear stage.
Yeah, and also they haven't been bringing a Thermite. He's not
Attackers have
banned
located
in
a
this
bomb.
match, unless I wrote this ban phase
You were
down
very correct.
incorrectly.
It's a Thatcher and a Ying that are banned.
And you're bringing a Habana when you know you're probably going to be attacking the top floor, and you're dealing with this. I mean, that's a very small hole to work with. It effectively is a bottleneck, and it sometimes can work against the attackers. So you're costing yourself just a little bit of potential utility, and it's you know, in your pick phase, you could change that.
The only major benefit that I can see a Hibana bringing to a closet wall push is that because that hole is so small in comparison to an exothermic charges hole from the Thermite, Adam will get the first kill. Benji, the roaming Mira, will get a kill now too, and that is going to be a 5v3 in favor of Obey. I think Noble realizes they have to get aggressive here, and Heavy will be rewarded by that by dispatching Bosco, and he'll go for a second, but Benji, playing at the top of White Stairs, will answer back. Yeti is inside right now of Kids Dorms, though. He'll take down Adam before getting shocked by that shock wire. Crazy looking to try to figure out where that Mira is. Crazy will tag himself to try to draw out the Mira. Excellent job. Sky's trying to get back to site. It's Yeti last alive. He gets Diffuser down, but Obey can possibly double up on him. The Buck situated right now, playing by the desk in the middle of Big Dorms. He'll throw a frag grenade down. It will get eaten by the ADS. He's very careful to make sure that nobody pushes up White Stairs. Sky's below. Yeti right now circling, trying to figure out where they can be. My man is currently in Generator. Sky's working his way up White Stairs. They could possibly fight for a trade-off here. Yeti will get my man, looks for Skies, but no! Sky's the clutch and will guarantee Obey the victory. So close for Noble to get a point out of this one, but their winning streak and their point streak will end at 3 weeks. A good closeout, and honestly, a great game overall from Obey to stretch the lead when they need to, and then finish it out. Despite getting really close from Noble, Obey will find their first victory of the season.
Now, say what you will about the support player, say what you will about the information gathering, and Skies took full use of all of that, but as an individual, some of the plays that he made were just amazing. I mean, in that last round there, the clutch, you know, he's refragging, he's playing off the bait, and it worked out for him, and that's to be expected. But, you know, so many other things to highlight. The bandit push through cafeteria to disable the attack entirely, coming around the long angle and catching the attackers off guard. But overall, just, yeah, great individual round from him, or map, I guess, from him, and allowing the victory 6-4.
Good play across the board from Obey as well. I was very impressed with the way that they were using a variety of operators on different pushes and different holds, especially with Benji getting very aggressive and taking a chance on that first frag before being able to get back to White Stairs. Overall, they've just been getting better and better, and I think it's interesting because the main criticism of Obey is usually that they are full of fraggers. They are, you know, they got 5 guys who are capable of just killing everything, and maybe not the most adept at using their tools, but a lot of times they're using their tools, as limited as they may be in certain circumstances, quite well to empower them to get those frags. And even with the target bans, I think, directed at them, they still prevailed.
Yeah, and if you want to vote on the MVP, you could do so right down there. But, you know, as much as Obey is critiqued commonly for being, yes, full of fraggers and being those fraggers, that's how they won that match just now. They just won it off of the fraggers. And, I mean, in that last round especially is a great highlight of just that. Noble had that round. They had control. They had a mirror window in their favor. They even had an even man count at one point, but they just got out fragged. Frags. And sometimes that's all it comes down to. No matter how strategically you can outplay your opponent, sometimes if you lose the fight, it doesn't matter.
And like I said, a good effort from across the board. The team consistently getting better. And my first question to Skies when we do our interview is going to be about Benji. Benji's impact on the team. How is he changed? How is he performing in a different possible capacity? Because he and Gurmy are on very similar roles. They were playing a Mira Echo when we saw them last time play on Oregon, which was, I believe, the first match of the season against Evil Geniuses. Benji playing that same role overall, and then approaching the bans the way they did. I think it's going to be interesting to get their insights. Snake Nate is, of course, the coach of Obey Alliance, or one of the managers, because I believe OG Kens has now joined them. OG Ken's a veteran of the scene, of course, has now, I think, taken over primary coaching roles, but that's something that I'm going to have to ask them, of course, when the time comes, because I'm intrigued to see how that support structure for the team works.
One thing I can say from experience is that Snake Nade, you know, say what you will about him, he is probably a really good option for a coach. If I were to pick someone in the scene as like just a motivator, someone to keep keep the ball rolling, Snake Nade's he's up there on that list. He's really good at that role. He's the sort of person that keeps everyone going in the same direction, whether you like it or not, and that's definitely something a merit of his.
So it's for Noble. I mean, they're a team now that 2 weeks in a row, they haven't gotten the results that they wanted, but I honestly don't think anybody came into this season putting Noble in the top 4 right out the gate. No. They're very unproven, just simply based on that alone. But on top of that, with how competitive and how locked in the top 4 have looked over the last couple seasons for NA, you know, it's been a real refresher. Also, we're being told no interview for us today, so no question asked. We can ask them in private.
Yeah, we'll ask them later, but
we can ask them in private.
But yeah, Noble. As much as they lost that, they did the strategy that they were pulling out, especially on defense. I really have to give them praise for the defensive setups on the alt sites, especially the way that they banned Thatcher directly to allow for an easier trick inside of that attic. They had the Jaegers to try and counter the nades. They had a lot of great setups. Overall, really good job there from Noble. It just wasn't enough because again, they got out fragged.
So, they got out-fragged is a great way of putting an awful lot of rounds, and especially a lot of rounds we saw today. Well, it's been a lot of fun bringing the last couple weeks of Super Weeks to you. We've seen an absolute blitz, if I can use that pun, of matches over the last 14 days, and it's been very interesting to see the results. But we leave off now looking towards Spain. Valencia is going to be the home of our next set of matches. We'll be at DreamHack in just a couple days, and that will be it for us. We'll take a bit of a break for Pro League, and we'll be back sometime next week with the next set of Pro League matches. But in the interim, enjoy the freedom and the sunshine, and we'll see you in just a couple days in Spain at DreamHack Valencia. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night.
Attacker bomb diffuser has been dropped. Seconds remaining. Go. Attackers have located a bomb. 5 seconds to go. The attacker's bomb has been dropped. Bomb diffuser. 5 seconds.